and big upsets, one of the biggest came in the fiercely contested Senate race in Pennsylvania. Now, the storyline almost reads like a movie. You've got the brash steel town mayor, a larger than life figure, laid low by a devastating stroke. He literally won the Democratic primary against the entire Democratic establishment while laying in a hospital bed. Up in the general election, he's up against a rich celebrity TV doctor brought to stardom by Oprah herself. And after a brutal debate performance by Fetterman, it looked like the smarmy celeb was poised to take advantage of Fetterman's health struggles. But then, on election day, what do you know? Not only did Fetterman win, it wasn't actually all that close. He bested Dr. Oz by more than 4 points. He performed better than Trump, Biden, or outgoing Senator Pat Toomey in the state, cut down on rural margins, and won back white working class voters who had been fleeing the party in droves. So how did this man, struggling to recover under the glare of a national spotlight, actually pull this all off? Well, Fetterman's unexpected against the odds win is a perfect parable of what happened in this election, and specifically how the media misunderstands politics, voters, and elections. In almost every instance, their narrative of this race in particular was not just off, but actually the polar opposite of reality. And it was ass backwards in ways that are consistent with their misreading of this election and many other elections besides. So let's dig into 3 of the myths and what the actual reality is. So the first myth is that Fetterman is a bad candidate. Let's start off by talking about that debate. It was pretty rough, y'all. If you are a remotely empathetic person, it was painful to watch this burly figure struggle to get his words out when it mattered most. Media was quick to pronounce it a disaster and potentially campaign ending. I couldn't help wondering myself if the principal choice to do the debate had ended in political catastrophe for the big man. But as I argued here, I wasn't so convinced that voters would read it the way that the pundit class did. Perhaps, instead, they'd see Fetterman as kind of courageous for subjecting himself to such a humbling, humiliating experience and for showing such vulnerability. Perhaps they'd see in Oz's performance the smarmy dickishness that had held his approval ratings deep underwater. And it turned out, when all was said and done, I was correct. Because not only did the debate seemingly not hurt Fetterman, there's actually an argument it helped him. In fact, according to favorability tracking of the race by Civics, Oz's favorability rating had been slowly improving up until that debate. Afterwards, it stopped dead in its tracks, leaving him upside down by a devastating 22 points. Fetterman, on the other hand, saw his favorables actually gain slightly following that supposedly devastating debate performance, going from slightly underwater to actually neutral leading into Election Day. In the end, Oz's debate quip that abortion should be between women, doctors, and local political leaders might have ended up being the most consequential moment of the night. Now, the lesson here is that candidate quality does actually matter. The media just has no clue what qualities voters actually care about. In Pennsylvania, they cared more about Fetterman's authenticity than about his health struggles. They cared more about Oz being out of touch than his slick TV presentation skills. In the same way, while Herschel Walker still not a great candidate because of his strained relationship with the truth, he is actually probably a better candidate than Oz, who is elitist, Blake Masters, who just comes across as extremely strange, and J.D. Vance, who came across as wildly inauthentic. Mitch McConnell's lead pollster apparently said that he had never seen a candidate do as poorly in focus group testing as Blake Masters. Vance, of course, was able to win, but underperformed in every county in the entire state. Turns out that fallible humanity trumps a silver tongue, celebrity, or fancy credentials when it comes to the voters. The second myth that was destroyed by Fetterman's win is that progressive policies are bad politics. So, before the stroke and before he was up against Oz, the entire Democratic establishment was aligned against Fetterman, backing corporatist golden boy Connor Lamb. Lamb nearly swept the endorsement race, garnering the backing of state and national electeds. The reason for this lopsided situation was simple. Lamb was a centrist and Fetterman was a Bernie lefty. The powers that be thought Lamb would be more electable and probably worried also about Fetterman being less easily controlled. Well, we all know what happened next. Fetterman destroyed Lamb, romping with a 30-point margin over the anointed golden boy. In the general election, Oz's team seized on Fetterman's progressive credentials as their primary line of attack. They bashed him in paid ads and on social media as being supposedly a Bernie Sanders socialist. But none of this scared Fetterman off from embracing a left economic populism, and he arguably pulled it off better than any other Senate candidate in the entire country. Fetterman's profile was perfect, of course. The heavily tattooed former Steeltown mayor who looked the most himself in a pair of basketball shorts and a hoodie, even in 30-degree weather. But more important than the everyman vibe was the policy posture. He was unabashedly pro-union. Labor went all in for him. He was also unabashedly pro-weed, which in focus groups is actually one of the top policy issues that voters associated with him. He leaned into a message about corporate price gouging rather than just ceding economic issues to Dr. Oz and the Republicans. And his negative messaging on Oz was also pitch-perfect economic populism. Part of why Oz's favorability ratings were so low was because a devastating early campaign by Fetterman to define him as a rich Hollywood, New Jersey elitist who was more familiar with crudité than with the Steelers' home game schedule, and who couldn't possibly relate to the struggles of normal Pennsylvanians. In the end, Fetterman's lefty economic populism was a boon and not a curse. In fact, if you dig into the numbers, Fetterman, the furthest left battleground Senate candidate in the whole country, outperformed every other Democratic candidate with independents. Take a look at this. He did better with independents than Mark Kelly, someone who positions himself as a moderate and has a generally positive statewide profile in Arizona. Did way better with independents than Raphael Warnock, a man who talks and inspires for a living as a pastor. But I've got a metric that is even better than that. I am obsessed with these maps in the New York Times that show how the vote shifted between the 2020 presidential election and 2022. Most of them look a lot like this one in Georgia. Some of the areas shifted more to the Republicans, some shifted more to the Democrats.
There's a really important primary happening, and it's going to happen soon in Pennsylvania. I think this is a huge opportunity for the left with John Fetterman surging, maintaining a significant lead in polling. And there was a piece in Politico the other day that I wanted to highlight because you rarely see pieces like this, and this is a win for the left thus far if this is maintained. There was another Politico piece today talking about how Democrats fear that they've lost the rural vote forever. Someone like John Fetterman would be a step forward and actually I think would have a lot of national appeal if he ever chose to run for president or something like that. Honestly, I know that there are some things in his past that he might have to overcome, but the point is that the fact that he's courting unions, the fact that he has made it a priority to reach out to rural voters, that's a huge plus, as opposed to someone like Connor Lamb. So Holly Otterbein, I believe, wrote this piece in Politico. She's done some deep dives into, there we go, look at that, leftist candidates before. Her piece is called "The Left Neutralizes the Dem Establishment in Pennsylvania Senate Primary," which is, is that up on the screen, guys? Sorry. No, it's all right. We're still working it out. Here she writes, Connor Lamb is the kind of swing state Senate candidate who used to make Democratic power brokers swoon. A former Marine and prosecutor, Lamb catapulted onto the national scene in 2018 when he flipped a House seat that former President Donald Trump carried by nearly 20 points. President Joe Biden said the young centrist lawmaker reminds him of his late son, Beau. Yet for all his pedigree as a battleground state candidate, Lamb remains mired in the Democratic primary for Pennsylvania's open Senate seat, trailing progressive frontrunner Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman in both fundraising and the polls. Even more surprising, the party establishment hasn't swooped in to help Lamb, despite the fact that Democratic leaders have aggressively recruited candidates with a profile like his to run for Senate in the past. Lamb's predicament offers a window into how much the Democratic Party has changed in recent years. Progressives have gained a major foothold, small dollar fundraising has upended election dynamics, and moderate white men like Lamb are no longer shoo-ins. But this, in terms of a Senate primary, I feel this is fairly unprecedented for a candidate like Fetterman to be holding on to this lead when you do have someone like Connor Lamb, who the piece will go into later, how it's not like he's completely without funds. The infamous James Carville is working with some sort of super PAC to help fund his effort here, naturally. But he, despite having all the pedigree that basically Democratic establishment types have appreciated in the past, he's been unable to make leads and make gains in polling commensurate with the hype that he gets. He was quoted in this piece saying, if online fundraising was what determined these elections, you'd have either Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump as the president.
Buy off the nomination. Pretty crazy. And to put the cherry on top, let's see how many. Ooh, 67,000 likes on his response. Compare that to what? Dr. Oz's 274. Oh my God! If John Fetterman's gonna win. We should just put money on it right now.
Oh, I already low-key did put. So guys, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm a degenerate gambler, and you can gamble on politics. So, I mean, I don't know if I have to disclose that to anybody. There's no like, I always lose money when I gamble, like everybody else does. So there's nobody that's paying me. But anyway, yeah, you can bet on futures for who's going to win a race. So like I have like some futures. Like one of the futures I bet on was like, is Trump going to get indicted by September? I was like, fuck no, that's not going to happen. So I put the money on that. Or like, oh, are the Democrats going to, hold on to the House after the fucking, midterms? Fuck no. So I put futures on that, that kind of shit. Anyway, one of the ones I did bet on was the fact that I thought that Dr. Oz was going to lose and that the Democrats would win the Senate race in Pennsylvania. But anyway, yeah, great use of the word carpetbagger. True. That was
That's what he is. There's no other word to describe it.
Yep. It's a good one though. But anyway, yeah, it completely pathetic. The one thing that I think that it just has to be said is that it's so valuable that the Democrats learned from John Fetterman in the time when it is probably among the hardest to run as a Democrat, right? In the wake of like Joe Biden's massive unpopularity, the Democrats not responding to anything. I think the Roe decision tipped the scale a little bit back in their favor, but not a ton. And then for him to still just be wiping the fucking floor with Dr. Oz, right? I mean, like obviously Twitter's not real life, guys, but who the fuck do you think is on Twitter? Real people, right? So I understand not every all the sample size of the people who are favoriting John Fetterman's tweets are not all from Pennsylvania. They're not all going to vote in the Pennsylvania election. That's not lost on me and Gavin at all. But the energy that one candidate commands being exponentially higher than any other candidate typically shows that there's going to be a lot more of a robust turnout. He's also probably getting more donations. Dr. Oz is malding constantly about how he's like not making enough money. So all these kinds of things. I just think it's important for us. Obviously, I know there's a lot of people who are like, fuck John Fetterman because of his position on Israel. I totally understand that position. But I think that if you compare his style of politics and why it's important to observe him and his success, one being because domestically he's 10-1 better than anything that Dr. Oz would put forth, but also because it's such a learning opportunity for the left writ large and the Democrats if they want to learn it, because a guy like, what's his face? Like Connor.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? I hope you guys had a great holiday. Make sure you check your audio as well, CJ. It's messing up as well. But I hope you guys had a great holiday. And I'm glad that you came with these clips, CJ. I'm extremely glad. Because I'm never going to let these people forget how they misled the workers. Now these people are trying to get clout, calling out John Fetterman. I can't believe John Fetterman would betray us. You guys see how deeply unserious their commentary is? And what they are doing, this is what Crystal did as well. They was praising John Fetterman's ability to trick working class people. You understand, CJ? So you know how they will say, "Oh, look at all this his campaign strategy of trying to appeal to rural workers." These deeply serious commentators was impressed because John Fetterman wore a hoodie and shorts. So because John Fetterman had a hoodie and a short, and he wore shorts, they thought that he was a man of the worker, despite being an Ivy League spoiled rich kid. And that's why these people are guilty. Because it's not like they just guessed wrong, CJ. It's not that. It's that they were actively helping confuse the working class. They was aiding and abetting John Fetterman's fraudulent campaign against the workers. Because it's not like they did honest live streams where, and I'll pass it here in a second, CJ. It's not like they did honest live streams where they say, okay, here are the pros, here are the cons, right? They straight up wouldn't tell people. They straight up wouldn't tell people the position these people have. They will do an entire segment praising them. And then when they bring up Israel, like they hear, they'll swat to the side. Because the social democrats and the white left, their job is to push lesser two evils, incrementalism on the workers. Because what these people did, as I was warning people about John Fetterman's unhinged Zionism, what they was doing, they were pretending that RBN wanted Dr. Oz to win. You know, common shit-lived tactics. Oh, you're telling the truth about the politician I support, so you must be a Republican. You must be a Trumper. You must be supportive of Dr. Oz. That's literally what they said about us. That we want to harm the progressive movement because we want Dr. Oz to win. You see how the job of the social democrats and the unserious soc dems is to cultivate a dumb working class who moves based on the premise of lesser to evilism instead of having principles. CJ, I'll let you chime in there a lot, say on this. That's just my intro. Go ahead, CJ. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so I had a completely different intro, but you and I were very, as Dr. West would say, we are very ad libby. Like we can change on a drop of a dime. And I saw the exchange you had over this. First, I saw the Vanguard tweet earlier, and I just thought, same thing. Nick, it becomes so commonplace that we call shit out months in advance, and then the SOC Dems finally get on board with it, and then we just gotta go, oh, here they go again. And I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just another thing, just like another day today. And I saw this and I was like, wow, I'm like, these guys have completely flipped. So I started looking for what all these people were saying about John Fetterman. Because we've been talking about what they've been saying now, but I have yet to pull up past clips until today. And I saw that one with Crystal Ball. I saw this one with Vanguard. There's plenty with Majority Report. There's plenty with TYT. All of them were saying, yeah, Israel. And it's so funny, not funny in a ha-ha, but funny in an ironic way, that how all of they were saying, Israel's a single issue. I'm sorry, Israel is a single issue. Israel is a litmus test. Don't just not support somebody because they're not in line with you in Israel. And then to have 20,000 Palestinians murdered. And it's like, what? Come again? What were you saying about Israel not being a litmus test? What were you saying Israel not being that big of a deal? What were you saying? Go ahead.
You notice how they called it the Israel thing. The Israel thing. That's how you sum it up. The deeply serious political channel, right? The Israel thing. You notice at no point did the Crystal Ball, Gavin, Cal Kalinske, all these people who pushed John Fetterman, did they ever do a segment where they actually pull this up? You know what the Israel thing is, CJ, when they say that? That's them acknowledging that we exist in our criticism of John Fetterman exists. Because who was criticizing John Fetterman on Israel, ladies and gentlemen? Who was the people criticizing John Fetterman on Israel? It was us. So when Vanguard and that clip you see, when they say, oh, they're that Israel thing, who you guys think they're talking about? Where do you guys think they got that information from? They saw my criticism of him. I know they saw it because I tagged them in all the tweets. I ratioed him to death right now. It's gonna get bad today. They're gonna feel some pain today at this ratio. Because we just getting started. I just tweeted this out not too long ago. right? So I tweet this out again, ratio them again. And fam, this has been multiple times where I ratio the Vanguard, Crystal, Cal, everyone who supported John Fetterman with this same receipt. And you notice at no point, CJ, did they see that receipt like, damn, I didn't know this. Let me look into this. Maybe let me do a segment on this for my audience. You know, they never do that. It's almost like their job is to manufacture consent and grift off of these campaigns. The Vanguard and these people made a calculated decision that John Fetterman was going to win, which I thought he was too, right? Just looking at the field and everything. So they're like, all right, this guy's going to win, and there's enough aura of credibility of me supporting them without me being an open sellout, especially if I don't tell people about them. So I'll pass it back to you, CJ. I know you have a presentation, but this is the receipt, and this is the receipt you're gonna see me reply with the Vanguard with. John Fetterman says he'll lean in on U.S.-Israel relationship as senator. So question to the Fetterman fans, what do you think lean in mean when you're supporting a genocidal apartheid state? CJ, I'll put my stuff down. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. John Fetterman is one of those topics, Nick. It doesn't matter what time of the day. If you say it's a John Fetterman topic, we got receipts for days on John Fetterman. It's just one of those topics.
I love it.
It don't matter. It don't matter. I don't have to warn Nick about no John Fetterman segment. I just bring up John Fetterman and the receipts will flow. Let me read this tweet that you.
Yeah,
at this point,
I pulled that receipt up so many times I can literally just type in FET and that shit pops up immediately on my Google bar. But go ahead, CJ. That's how fast.
Yeah, let me read. And now this is all coming around to the main topic, which is Fetterman proves again he's just another Democrat, and that is this latest thing with him and Fetterman versus James Carville, which is both despicable people, but. This is what Vanguard puts out, starting to seriously wonder if the progressive cosplaying by Fetterman was just a cynical ploy to get the left to ignore his past behavior. He played us like a filler. No.
You just now realized. Oh,
Nick. This is what people who don't have, let's just say, they're not that smart politically. You have to make the person that fooled you be some sort of mastermind. He wasn't a mastermind. He wasn't a mastermind, okay? He was not a mastermind. Like, he didn't cosplay as anything. As Nick has pointed out many times,
yeah,
this was told by you, and you guys said we were being divisive, specifically on Fetterman. They were talking about us. Go ahead, Nick. You were going to chime in.
Yeah, like this is what no theory does to a motherfucker. That is like people like Kyle Kulinski. Like he openly brags about. I never read Marx. I haven't looked into Marx. The people like they brag about the ignorance. They brag about it. If you can't identify your enemy, how can you analyze the current political system? Right? Like Kwame Torres said, he has a great comparison. Like in the early human days, snakes was one of our biggest enemies, right? That's why we fear snakes. So how ridiculous would it be if snakes is a danger to you and your community, but you didn't know what a snake looked like? CJ, snakes killing you and your family. They are a threat to humanity, but you don't know. If people are like, what snake like? I don't know. That sounds retarded, doesn't it? That sounds ridiculous, right? That is what social democrats are to capitalism, to theory, to history. I can't identify the enemy. I'm a probable capitalist, someone who is an Ivy League, generational wealth, class warrior for the capitalist class. They can't identify that. See, me, I immediately identify that. When I see they came from, well, what are the class disparities? What are the cultural differences between us? Meanwhile, Vanguard, Crystal, Kyle, Bree, a lot of these people, they want to anoint millionaires as leaders. Marianne Williamson, John Fetterman, their theory of change is to give power to the capitalists and hope the capitalists destroys the system. Do you guys see how ridiculous that is? Do you guys see why it's so important to be able to identify your enemy? That's why I take offense when people say globalists and all this stuff. Who's your enemy? Who are you talking about? There's no class analysis, no class struggle in your politics? You just making up terms and hope people vibe with it? Ask the average person on the street. People on the street say, what's a globalist? And people are like, I don't know. Ask the average person, what's a globalist? I don't know. But if you tell you what a billionaire is, they know what the fuck you're talking about. You know, this is what the clarity we need for the working class. We need clarity, not confusion, fam. The Vanguard and the Social Democrats, they are masters of confusion. They don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. We don't talk about it. I don't know. I'm not for them. I don't know. You guys see how they master confusion, master of being proud of their ignorance and wanting to spread that to the working class? I'm a chatty motherfucker today. I've been gone for holidays. CJ, I'll pass back to you. There's gonna be a lot to say. I'll pass back to you.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to go ahead. No, go ahead. Say add more.
One more thing. If you look in the replies, everyone who's a Marxist, I even seen some anarchists as well say, no Marxist and no anarchist was tricked by this. Now, there's differences in terms of theory of change between me and anarchists in general. But anyone who understands that capitalism is our enemy, anyone who understands how the ruling class operate, you're not tricked by this. And you got to see, people are saying it.
Somebody put me and you right here. I didn't even see this. I didn't even see this. It says Nick and CJ tried to tell you idiots, but I didn't even see this.
Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, this is not the main story. We're just having a little fun with the Vanguard and a lot of these progressives because we called this a long time ago, and it's so funny the receipt that they use, Nick, the black jogger receipt. Like you're gonna bring in now you're gonna use black pain so people can feel sorry for you making this bad decision on John Fetterman. But go ahead,
bro. Hold up. I swear to God, I did not see that receipt. You know, to my response, I never mentioned the black jar.
You were just talking about what they typed. Yeah.
Hold up. Did they really?
Yes.
Put the receipt.
Yes. Right there.
So it only took the politician supporting a genocide for you to reflect on your decision as a privileged white person to support someone who pulled a shotgun on a black jogger. Do you guys remember what network on YouTube that viewed that as a red line? Revolutionary Blackout Network. We view that as a red line. And when we mention that as a red line, people can change. People can change. Come on, man. We run on vibes. You guys don't run on vibes? Come on, he said he changed, CJ. Fuck class analysis. Fuck analyzing his current positions on things. Like, let's ignore the fact that he's comfortable within the Democratic Party. How can he be comfortable within the ranks of our enemy? Imagine if you're at war with another country. Just to keep it simple, imagine if we had war with Canada, like a brutal war, and you see homie chilling in Canada with the soldiers. Then they come back like, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm with you." You be like, "You were just with Canada. What the hell you going on?" And that's what the progressives do with capitalism, and they want to trick us to supporting them. They can't identify the enemy. In fact, they team up with them, and then they want to drag us along with us, and they cause divisive when they want to join with us. Nope. What they are being say, CJ, I don't give a about unity. I don't want unity. I want solidarity. And these people spit in the face of solidarity and they demand unity. Because as John Fetterman and as black leftists, because everyone on Twitter was bringing it up, every black leftist all over Twitter was bringing up the shotgun thing. You know what response we got from the white left? Shut the fuck up and fall in line. They demand unity while expecting us to join with them while not giving solidarity. That's the problem. That's why we always be enemies with these people. They're not our friends. They are actually agents of the capitalist class. CJ, I'll pass back to you. I need to get my charger real quick. I'll be right back.
Man, yeah, go ahead. And I know they're probably thinking, man, if we had one wish, it would be for RBN to freaking go away. Like, I know that the Bernie Sanders industrial complex and media has that wish every year that RBN has been in effect because their jobs to manipulate and sort of omit information to their audience was so much easier before RBN came around, and now it's almost unavoidable. So let's kind of pivot, or not pivot, because we're just bringing in more information about the same topic, and that is John Fetterman. And so now, like, all of their clips, all of their coverage has a taint of sarcasm when they're talking about John Fetterman. It's so funny. how that is. So let's listen into Jordan Sheridan over at Status Quo cover the latest happenings that's going on with John Fetterman. We'll stop and start. We'll maybe listen to about 2.5 minutes of this clip here.
For neoliberal corporate vulture, James Carville. And in return, I have some words for John Fetterman. Obviously, Fetterman, who ran embracing himself as a progressive, has recently backtracked on that. Shocker. But now Fetterman is talking to Politico, showering praise on the sinking Titanic. That is.
I'm not sure how he meant that, because he said shocker as if it wasn't a shocker. Like, that's the way he said it, was as if it's not a shocker that this guy Fetterman has made this flip. And that would be weird, because most of the Soc Dems were absolutely on his side. And now it's so revisionist history is it's such a thing, especially when it comes to
Joe Biden, while telling
Dems.
James Carville to go take a hike. Let's show you this, which I found interesting. Politico said, we've talked about this a few months ago, and you told me then you thought Biden would win Pennsylvania and win the overall election, but things have gotten worse for him since then. Trump is now ahead in many polls. But that doesn't really matter, Fetterman said. There's a whole lifetime in politics between now and next November as well. I'm not worried about that. And I'm very vocal about this, too, while there are Democrats that are being very critical about the president. I'll use this as another opportunity to tell James Carville to shut the fuck up. Like I said, my man hasn't been relevant since grunge was a thing. And I don't know why he believes it's helpful to say these kinds of things about an incredibly difficult...
Since grunge was a thing. That's funny, coming from the guy who's dressed in grunge every day. That's so funny for him to say that. I'm gonna come back to this clip, because I want to go to the article that he's reading here. It's so funny. This sort of exchange, I'm covering it because I find it funny to cover these. These are really just two clowns that are arguing about over something as ridiculous as Joe Biden, and they have a history of sort of not liking each other. But here's the headline: Senator John Fetterman on Democratic strategist James Carville's Biden criticism is shut the fuck up now. It's not about shutting the fuck up about supporting genocidal Israel, Nick. It's not about shutting the fuck up about suppressing wages. It's not about shutting the fuck up about preventing healthcare. It's shut the fuck up about criticizing a sinking ship that we know called Joe Biden. And here's another headline I'll bring up before we discuss some more. Fetterman on Carville Biden criticism, shut the fuck up. But let me read the snippet from the article, the Hill article here that I took out. And here's a quote. This is Fetterman. Fetterman says, like I said, and this is what he was just reading, but I want to make sure everybody hear it clearly. My man hasn't been relevant since grunge was a thing, and I don't know why he believes he's helpful to say these kinds of things about an incredibly difficult circumstance with an incredibly strong and decent and excellent president. I'll never understand that, Fetterman said. And let me pause here, because to me, Nick, I don't know if you get the same feeling. With each person who's helping Joe Biden, it feels like they understand the role they're playing, and they have a specific role. Like AOC is to give cover to the left for the things that he's doing and to call him a leftist, and Bernie Sanders is to cover for him on war. It feels like Fetterman is playing a role to cover for him, but he's playing a role like an ace role, because of his disabilities and his recent stroke, he's able to say stuff that people aren't really going to go on an attack on him. You get what I'm saying? Like James Carville, they're not going to bring James Carville. Hey, look what Fetterman said about this, because they kind of agree what Fetterman is saying about shut up James Carville, because James Carville is going on Bill Maher. He's going everywhere to talk about how Joe Biden should drop out of the race. But what say you? Were you going to chime in before I read on here?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. All right. So just a couple of more sentences. Earlier this year, Carville warned that Democrats, Biden could lose to former President Trump in 2024. Carville, a political consultant to former President Clinton, had been critical of the push by Democrats to re-elect Biden despite concerns from voters that he is too old for the job. John Fetterman blasted Democratic strategist James Carville, saying he should shut the fuck up on criticism regarding President Biden, he and his odds in 2024 race. In a new interview with Politico, Fetterman responded to a question about Biden's re-election campaign by slamming Carville unprompted, saying he would use the interview as, quote, another opportunity to tell James Carville to shut up. Now, this is all funny and everything, but go ahead, Nick. Go ahead if you're going to chime in.
Yeah, so CJ, stuff like this is why I never bought into Trump derangement syndrome, right? So if you truly believed that a guy who has a good chance to be president is an existential threat to democracy, and I'm talking about someone who's going to end the rule of law. That's what they say. That he's a dictator, and this is, once again, my friends and family, the most important election of our lifetime. Now, if they truly believe that Trump was a unique evil, they will be doing everything they can to defeat him, including welcoming criticism. All right, who been in elections, who know elections, who's willing to warn us about what's coming, who has a good strategy about what's moving forward, who has any critique about what's going on. So if you were someone that actually thought that Trump was a threat, you'd be like, all right, who has any critique of what's going on? Let's listen to them. No, so what Fetterman is doing to Carville, or essentially everyone who critical of Biden here, is saying shut the fuck up and fall in line. No criticism. I don't care if you're trying to help Democrats, like Carville surely is, right? We all should just chill, run on good vibes, and just hope for the best. Does that sound like the strategy of people who is running against someone who's an existential threat? Now, considering how much of their base, for example, John Fetterman, supports the ceasefire, right? You would think that Trump, being the existential threat that he is, being a threat to a democracy that he is, that they would sacrifice an issue or two, right, CJ? Like, all right, you're a threat to a democracy, you're going to end the rule of law. I'm like, all right, fuck, drop this thing then. If I really believe, all right, drop Medicare. Damn, we got to do something. We got to drop this. We got to drop this. They don't really believe that, because if they did, they will drop the loyalty to Israel, because that is the thing that will get Trump elected, correct? The fact that they're not willing to drop their loyalty to Israel shows that they really don't believe Trump is worth this big deal like they pretend they are, right? Which is why Fetterman wanted to halt any criticism of Biden. But anyway, CJ, I think my point. You can continue.
Yeah. So, and I think this wasn't a long segment. I just thought it was an interesting segment to start with. And I'll pass you for another receipt. Now, let me just say this: yeah, Fetterman has been in the news not just because of this. So I'm sure you have, and I do have a couple other receipts, just slightly different topic, because he's been voicing a lot of things, from him saying he's not progressive to this thing with Carville, but he's also was in the news because Fox News has been using him a lot to say, look, guys, even the progressive is down with immigration. You see why these labels matter, because then they use it to push their neocon wars, or they use it to push their capitalist policies. But I pass it to you for your next
That's such a fantastic point, CJ, because now they're doing the storyline of even Fetterman, who even they say was progressive, say the left has gone too far. You guys see why it's important to know our enemies? And John Fetterman is very happy about this, CJ. He sees the praise that he's getting from the capitalist class. Remember, you're not a capitalist fan. You think you're a capitalist, you're not. You're an exploited worker. Repeat after me. You're not a capitalist. You're an exploited worker. Only a very few amount of people is a capitalist. People who control capital, people who invest in infrastructure, who has influence using their capital. You're a capitalist. Anyone who makes money through investment. Anyone who is able to exploit labor. You're not a capitalist. So John Fetterman is very happy about the praise he gets from the capitalist class, like Fox News, the Democratic Party. Like, man, this guy's not that bad. All right? So this is him looking at the Vanguard, looking at Jordan, looking at Crystal, Kyle, the Humanist Report, David Doe, all these people. And instead of saying thank you, he is saying, ha ha, gotcha, sucker. Deal with it. Now, to me, this story is fun. This story is funny because you guys got to feel a little bit pain in your heart. Be disappointed to realize the mistake that you made. To hopefully this will radicalize you, because that's what Obama did to me. I don't know, 10 plus years ago. You guys a little slow on the uptake there, but you guys need this, right? So now, if I supported Fetterman and this came out, I might quit YouTube. I'd delete my account. I'd be so mad. Look at this headline. John Fetterman isn't the politician you think he'd be, and he doesn't care. So this is him looking at all the progressives who support him, despite the fact that he pulled a shotgun on a black jogger, despite the fact that he comes from generational wealth and he does not have your class interests in mind. Despite all of that, you guys support him. So John Fetterman's like, oh my God, the workers are dumber than I thought they were. So now, instead of feeling any sort of sympathy, the capitalist class do what they do most. They engage in class warfare. So now, as you have the social democrat left who supported John Fetterman, right? Shouldn't John Fetterman show sympathy to these people, reach out to these people? No, what do you do when you got someone defeated in war? You want to completely crush and demoralize them, CJ. You want a complete, utter victory psychologically as well. So as people are mourning the fact that they supported John Fetterman, as all these people writing long tweets, not saying it, but they're essentially apologizing to their audience for supporting this guy. That's why they're doing this coverage. So as they're doing this, they're like, oh my God, I can't support the Fetterman. Here comes Fetterman's like, I don't give a fuck what you guys say. Even more. I would be embarrassed if I support this guy. But I don't want to be too long on this.
That was the other article. That was the other article I was going to bring up too. So that's good that you brought it up. Like I said, there's a bunch of different things going on written about John Fetterman. I think it's a couple of things happening. Of course, the establishment is realizing, wow, we didn't know that this guy John Fetterman was going to be this manipulable, if that's a word, like this easy to mold into what we want, because he's just laying down like no other. Either that or it is just becoming public, and I think it might be the latter, where it's just becoming public, where this was the plan all the time. Because remember at the time, Nick, one of the questions we was asking was like, why is the establishment not against John Fetterman if he's a real progressive? This doesn't make any sense. That I think didn't Hillary Clinton like endorse him, or somebody endorsed him?
All of them had nothing but great.
Yeah, we were like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this is so. It was so easily recognizable that this guy was not the person that he was claiming to be, and he wasn't going to govern a way that people were trying to make him out to be. And they were all just saying, because Oz is worse. What does that really mean when you're seeing it now? Like, look at his vote on immigration. Look at his vote on Israel. So what is the difference in Oz? You know what the difference, one of the difference would be? You wouldn't be believing that you have a fighter in the Senate and you would be fighting Dr. Oz every day.
Yes.
But because you think you have Fetterman, now you're doing nothing. So go ahead, Nick. You're going to say
absolutely.
That's my final words. We can close this and move on if you want.
Yeah. I have two short segments. I can cut a little bit if I have to. I'm gonna get out here around 2 hour mark. I have another live stream tonight. I'm gonna do. You guys know season 2 of Nick at Night starts. I officially started January 4th. Glenn Greenwald was very smart. Before he launched System Update, do you guys know that he ran like a few trial shows? I was one of the guests on one of the trial shows as they got everything ready. So that's what I'm gonna do this week. Before Nick at Night season 2 officially debut. Run a trial show tonight. We're on No on Tuesday, and then the official season 2 debut will be on Thursday the 4th. So you guys been asking for it. Nick at Night, not once a week, twice a week, and then we get Nick at Noon on Saturday. There are a lot of stories I don't got time to talk about, so that's why I'm gonna focus on those. I feel bad sometimes when I do my stories. I'm like, damn, I've just been ranting for like 40 minutes. CJ's been chilling there. So there's some stories I need to do on my own, just because I'm like, bro, you just, you know what I mean? Just take a lot of time. So that's what those streams gonna focus on. I'm gonna do a lot of one-on-one interviews on Nick at Night season 2. There's gonna be a lot of great changes to RBN. We had a while ago, we had a format where CJ will go live first. I'll go live in the evening. We're gonna go back to that format. There's still gonna be a lot of like guest collaborations with me and CJ. We're gonna be doing Monday about 3 times a month. So that's the plan going forward. So I have a story. Do you want to do announcements real quick? Just give me a second to get everything ready.
Yeah, I can do some announcements. So make sure you join our Substack. So it's kind of crazy. we've been under a severe de-amplification of our videos, our content. It's like our videos will go invisible for several hours, and then it reappears. People are being unfollowed by the tens every single day. So make sure you check. But if all else fails, make sure you're in our Substack, and that way you get notifications at least, even if you're not getting them through YouTube. So if you join our Substack, you'll get those notifications. The other thing is our website is always up for a good resource. So if you want to go there, check out our community service or what we believe in, even to get access to like our Patreon, to get access to our Substack. If you don't get the link here, you can get all of this on there, our chapters, different pictures on our chapters. So it's a lot of information you can get on our website, always a good resource. And then last thing before I pass it back to Nick, best way to support us is through Patreon. That's just, regular money. I think the lowest plan we have is $3. So you can afford $3 a month, join, become a member on Patreon. This is how we also pay our editor out of our money. So make sure, if you are have a chance, become a member on Patreon. And I'll pass it back to you, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question for you guys. Why don't we condemn Hamas in their channel? One of the things that led to our massive suppression, the worst it's ever been. I apologize greatly to the team. I'm sure my Hamas friends got us in great trouble, and that's why we're seeing historic suppression of our channel. But let me ask you guys a question. Why don't we condemn Hamas? Because Hamas have the legal right to defend themselves against a criminal occupying regime, especially a regime that is not complying with international law. Now, even people who think they're good on this issue, and I will admit they do good work sometimes like Crystal, they will condemn Hamas, right? Because what Hamas did is brutal, and they have no right to defend themselves under a brutal occupation. And what a lot of progressives would think, and what a lot of I wouldn't say Cal, to be Crystal. To be fair, I wouldn't say Crystal. I would say more like the Bernie establishment progressive types. What they believe is that Israel has the right, no matter how many people they kill, to go after Hamas. Everyone has a number. Bernie's number was around 20,000 dead kids, or dead Palestinians. About around 8,000 dead kids for Bernie. Like, shit, what kind of back witness? Everyone have a number, but the message was Israel's allowed to do that because Hamas killed and targeted civilians. Hamas had a successful military operation where Israel set the terms and condition of this war and this skirmish. So because of that, Israel's allowed to do whatever they want. Now, based on that logic, Hamas is allowed to do whatever they want to Israel because last year was one of the deadliest years in Palestinian history because all the crimes against humanity that Israel committed in Gaza because of the 2014 slaughter of Palestinians. Because of 2014, Hamas has every right to do what they want to Israel, according to their logic, according to neocon logic, if you don't care about the terms and conditions of war, right? So that's why we don't condemn Hamas. And there's a reason why people in like the BBC, CNN, all of them want you to do this. And there's a reason I'm going in this particular like this order, in a certain order. So I will never fall for that trick because I would explain international law to people. Colonized people have the right to defend themselves. Colonized countries do not have the right to defend themselves. So white America, the UK, the US, despite being a country that say they want to uphold the rule of law, they completely ignore international law on this. Isn't that interesting? How the quote-unquote abolitionist is more well-versed in law than you guys are? Now look at the trick that they play when they want people just to condemn Hamas. And I don't, because Israel, and I want you guys to hold the thought, because there's a reason I'm doing this first. Israel is the country that is out of compliance with international law. Do you guys understand? So if people say that Israel can fight Hamas because Hamas is quote unquote out of compliance with international law, even though they are not, that means Hamas is able to do whatever they want to Israel, including October 7th and beyond, based on their logic. Now, the logic I have is the logic of a revolutionary. If you are under siege of a colonial power, you should resist them. In fact, I have the toxic masculinity view, where I believe that as a man, it's your obligation to fight for liberation. I would love to have a conversation with like toxic right-wing masculinity people like Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate had like he had like an interesting philosophy. He believes that like money equals masculinity, and that you should work hard and you should grind for money. But what's more masculine than allowing someone to take your labor value, CJ? What's more masculine than fight for a government that don't have your best interests at heart? In fact, the most manliest thing that you can do is fight against the oppressors, not join the oppressors. If you join the oppressors, that's some cut shit as far as I'm concerned. You're selling your own people out for power? Meanwhile, I don't want to get too much on a rant, but that's my general philosophy as a revolutionary. And that is what I would say to these people, which would cause a lot of people upset. That's why you don't see me on the Hill. You don't see me on any of the shows. But let me show you guys this clip, and this is how they try to get people.
I wonder if you do have to acknowledge the barbarity, the brutality of the attack on Israelis in southern Israel by Hamas before this can move forwards.
Oh God! I mean, I can't.
You guys see the first question?
She can't take it no more. She's like, oh God, not this again.
Yeah. I want to get her title because I don't remember on top of my head. So this is a veteran Palestinian politician, Dr. Hanan Ashrawi. So this is the Palestinian. So that was the first thing they asked him. They don't ask you about the babies and the executions that we see in Israel. Do you condemn Netanyahu? They never asked them that. And she's going to make that point.
In Israel by Hamas before this can move forwards.
Oh God! I mean, I can't believe I'm hearing the same thing over and over again. This is a preoccupation with the Western media because something happened to Israel for the first time in its history. Everybody's up in arms and its victims have to condemn themselves. Israel has been doing this to us for decades. Piecemeal, day in, day out. People
for decades. So you want to know the fastest way I immediately stopped taking people seriously? You want to know the second I identify people as a propagandist for a hostile foreign power made up of Nazi fascists, Israel? When they say that Hamas started this. If you guys didn't want this, Hamas never started that. Whenever someone say that, every single opinion they say is irrelevant to me. I immediately lose respect for them. They are bootlickers of power. Because one, either you're talking about an issue you don't know about, and that means you're a smug, fake, pretend know-it-all. I only talk about stuff I know about. You know what I mean? So you're talking about an issue you never look into if you say that. Or you purposely lying. Both of those options make me disqualify you, CJ. But anyway, as you explained, this has been going on for a while. I'll let it continue. Just feel free to interrupt if you have anything.
Decades. Piecemeal, day in, day out. People homes demolished. And we're telling you how many Palestinians have been killed by a brutal Israeli occupation. Total siege in Gaza, total destruction and land theft in the West Bank. Nobody brings Israeli spokespeople and say, do you condemn this? Isn't this brutal? Isn't this genocide? Isn't this? No.
Are you saying that the Israeli citizens were legitimate targets?
No, I don't believe in civilians being legitimate.
Question for you guys. Who killed more people? Who killed more innocent civilians, Hamas or Israel? Spoiler, Israel by the tunes of thousands and thousands and thousands. So, CJ, if someone wants to say that Hamas is uniquely evil because they target civilians, I'm like, oh, you sweet summer child. Condemn every United States president that ever existed then. I'm not going to condemn Hamas until you condemn every single United States president, including Donald Trump, you Trump-supporting, American-first, fraudulent, Israel-supporting bootlickers. To condemn Donald Trump, who killed civilians. Unless you did that, you don't have no right to say someone should condemn Hamas. You have no right to say Hamas is a terrorist organization based on the claim that they kill civilians, because I can just say that United States and Israel kill way more. The UK has killed way more. Your generational wealth is based on how many people you guys killed and robbed. So condemn not only your country, but condemn your grandfather. Condemn your great-great-grandfather. Condemn everyone who didn't sacrifice everything to stop slavery, for example, to stop Jim Crow, to stand up for oppression. Because if you did not do that, you benefited from oppression. And you need to condemn yourself for yes, anyone condemn yourself. I'll let her finish her thought, and I get to the point I want to get to. I'll let her finish her thought here.
Israeli citizens were legitimate targets.
No, I don't believe in civilians being legitimate targets at all. at all. In the same way as we are not legitimate targets of Israel, our homes, our lands are not at its disposal. Our freedom, our rights have been denied. No, don't put words in my mouth.
Okay.
Never. Civilians are never legitimate targets. But what I'm talking about is the double standard.
Okay.
Israel is an occupying power. This has to be acknowledged.
Israel is an occupying power. This must be acknowledged. The only people who know law are the resistance fighters. Israel is a criminal regime, and I cannot emphasize enough, they rely on the United States to uphold the criminal regime. Have you guys seen these morons, the RFK Juniors of the world? They say, why do you guys focus on Israel? they are beating so badly intellectually, CJ. They say, why do you guys leave Israel alone? You know why we go after Israel? Because Israel is blocked by the country we pay taxes to. And in other countries who don't pay taxes to Israel, they focus on Israel because they want to hold Israel accountable. The only thing that's stopping them is the United States. Correct? So of course they'd be upset because they want to hold these motherfuckers accountable, but they cannot. You had the United Nations that they had resolutions vetoed left and right consistently condemning Israel. You have another one that is calling for ceasefires. This is an older headline. So the UN, in order to maintain some era of credibility, even though they have been exposed as a completely effectless organization whose resolutions mean nothing, that what happens when you operate in the restraints of pacifism and civility politics. But you had the UN that constantly call out Israel. You have the UN that called out settlements in the West Bank, that called the occupation of Gaza illegal. And what a lot of people forget is that the Biden administration, they decided to rejoin the UN Human Rights Council in order to protect Israel from UN votes that condemn Israel's occupation. So you guys understand that if it wasn't for the United States and the UK, Israel will, by the books, be considered a criminal terrorist state. So question for revolutionaries or anyone who anti-establishment, if you're squeamish, if you're too squeamish to call yourself revolutionary, call yourself a populist. That's what they do. I'm not a revolution. I don't want a revolution. I'm a populist. What are you talking about? So if you're a populist, you should be calling this out too. Now, because the UN constantly, and this is the main part of the story that I've been building up to, because the UN constantly have been a thorn on the side of Israel. I want to read this headline here too, showing how the United States is isolated on Israel, despite pretending to be a world leader on Ukraine. You now have Israel that is doing the meme, that is doing the joke I did a long time ago, CJ. Do you guys remember the joke I did live streams ago where Israel is blaming everyone who shows sympathy for the Palestinians as Hamas? If you care about hospitals being bombed, you're Hamas. If you care about children being decapitated, you're Hamas. If you care about them having their limbs amputated, you're Hamas. If you care about men being captured and tortured, you're Hamas. And UN has been condemning them over and over again, with the United States being the blocking power. So CJ, check this out, and I'll pass it to you for your reaction. So now Israel's official statement is that anyone who does not go along with their propaganda is Hamas. They are literally children. Look at this, Israel. You're Hamas, CJ. If you're in the comments, you're Hamas. Doctors, hospitals, they're Hamas. The UN is Hamas. Israel, we won't work with UN officials who regurgitate Hamas propaganda. What? So you have UN officials that called out Israel for their lie about Shifa Hospital being Hamas headquarters, which led Israel to kidnap the director of the Shifa Hospital and torture a confession out of him. But because you got these Western institutions speaking out and calling out Israel lies, Israel's like, if you call out our lies, if you do investigations of us, if there's any resolutions condemning our genocide, you are Hamas. Now, how seriously do you guys take the people that say the facts, like the amount of people that was killed by Israel genocide? You're repeating the Hamas-ran health ministry propaganda. That's what the Biden administration said as well. So we reduced ourselves to the level of idiocracy where all you have to do as a government is say, oh, you must be supporting our enemy whenever you call them out on their lies and crimes against humanity. So I'll just read a little bit of this. CJ, any initial reaction from I'll just read a little bit of this and then and I'll wrap this quick segment up. Anything you want to add real quick before I move on?
Yeah, this UN official about not saying Hamas. So that was a question I had. I think you kind of clarified. I just want to make sure. So in this article, they're saying that they're not going to work with UN because the UN believes that there isn't anything that was in that hospital. Is that what they're trying to say in this article? Is that they, because of that, because they don't fall in line with this nonsense, that's Hamas and they're not going to work with them?
So you have statements, many statements, countless statements I read. One of them being like this: Israel is working to expel civilian population of Gaza, UN human rights expert says. So the UN is like, all right, let's look into this shit. And then they do analysis like, all right, this is genocide, this is ethnic cleansing. And because they say a fact, now Israel is saying that we are not going to allow any UN people to have visa to Israel unless you get approval. Unless you are approved Israeli propagandists, we will bar you from our country to do investigations because these investigations keep saying stuff like this. You want to know why this is important? Because the Biden administration is breaking Lay's law. Do you guys know what Lay's law is? So the Biden administration is a lawless administration. According to Lay's law, you are not allowed to sell arms and munitions to anyone committing genocide or any crimes against humanity. So in order to make it so they are not officially out of compliance with Lay's law, you had the Biden administration that dragged their feet and say, oh, we haven't done any investigations. We haven't have any conclusive evidence. We haven't determined whether this constitutes a genocide or a crime against humanity. So technically we didn't violate Lay's law. You guys see how corrupt our government is? Meanwhile, on the other end, CJ, you know, it took them only a few weeks in Russia and Ukraine for John Kirby to come out and say, oh, we did an investigation and we found that Russia committed crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Putin, let me phrase it like this. More children died in Gaza over the last 2 months than every war zone in the last 3 years. So I was about to say Ukraine, but you guys understand how much that underdoing it?
Yes.
Let alone Ukraine, every war combined in the last 3 years. So counted death last year. You know what I mean? Counted against in 2022, 2021. Still don't got nothing what Israel did in a few months. And then people are still stupid enough to say this is not a genocide. How long you guys think they genocides take? You guys think that shit done immediately? Nigga, they say them genocide records. Nigga, you guys know what points per game is? If someone would look at someone's point per game, someone would look at Michael Jordan's point per game in the 90s, they're like, oh my God, this guy about to break the point scoring record. Did he break the point scoring record yet? No. He only got like 1,000 points. He's on pace to. That's what we say. They're on pace to commit to one of the craziest genocides we ever seen in human history. And because people like the UN is pulling this out, now Israel is saying we can't allow these people in.
Let me add one receipt here. Yeah, let me add one receipt here is on this, and you may have seen it also. Just a headline because this is important that we understand where have we gone in the stratosphere of being on the side of Israel, and maybe this is why the poll numbers are what they are for Joe Biden and Israel, because it is such at a level, Nick, of like, I don't need an investigation to know that's some bullshit. You get what I'm saying? It's such at a propaganda, like childish, cartoonish level that people can on site be like, I don't need no expert. That looks like bullshit. And I just wanted to put this up just as a receipt to what you were saying. And the UN is believing this report, and is a Washington Post investigate. This is a Washington Post, okay? Not Hamas. A Washington Post investigate has found no proof of Hamas command center under the Al-Shifa hospital following Israel's attack on the medical complex. And I love what Caitlin Johnstone always inserting humor with stuff like this, and I'll pass it back to you after I read this. Yeah. At this point, the default assumption of any thinking person should be that all claims made by Israel are lies until otherwise prove otherwise by mountains of rock solid evidence, and that's the way we should be treating Israel. And it is just obvious that it's so ridiculous. But back to you, Nick.
Yeah, I'm gonna just read a little bit of this so you guys see how ridiculous this is. So once again, this is the headline. Israel says we won't work with UN officials who regurgitate Hamas propaganda. Essentially, anyone who tells the truth. UN appoints former Dutch finance minister as new Gaza aid coordinator. Let's read just a little bit of this. Israel warned the United Nations that it would not work with those officials and staff members who support Hamas propaganda against the Jewish state. Once again, what do they consider Hamas propaganda? Simply reporting on dead children. You repeating the Hamas ran Gaza Health Ministry numbers? Even though Israel's numbers say we still kill thousands of children. Even if you don't believe the Gaza Health Ministry, Israel still admits they killed thousands of them. But anyway, that point aside, Israel will stop working with those who cooperate with Hamas terrorist regime's propaganda machine. Bro, people thought 1983 was like sophisticated when seeing it coming. 84, whatever year it was, that novel. That's Israel, fam. And all this theory over what a crazy society is, that's Israel. Because now they're just using the child argument. Kyle's a stupid doo-doo head. And how dare you believe Kyle? Kyle is stupid. Don't believe Kyle. That's a child's argument. That's the argument that Zionists are using. So I'll just read a little bit more and then I wrap this part up. He spoke hours before the UN announced it has appointed former Dutch finance deputy minister to a newly created position of senior humanitarian and reconstruction coordinator for Gaza to help monitor and oversee aid to the enclave. So the UN put someone to oversee humanitarian aid, and CJ was like, that's a step too far. I officially ban all the UN. This is the level of absurdity that we're seeing in Israel. Imagine if Hamas has killed over 100 UN workers, fam. I unapologetically reject the argument that Hamas is a terrorist organization. Show me where Hamas has killed over 100 UN workers. So then the UN was like, hey, Israel, what the fuck? Why are you killing so many of our UN workers? You guys know what Israel said in response? Israel was like, hey, we wouldn't kill them if they wasn't working with Hamas. You guys know how I'm losing my mind seeing society see this as normal? I feel like I'm being gaslighted to death. Do you know what the reaction of white America would be if Hamas killed 100 UN workers? And then CJ, then the media was like, hey, Hamas, can you stop doing that? And then Hamas was like, we will never stop killing UN workers as long as they help Israel. Do you guys understand what people would say about Hamas if that was the reality? What would they say about Hamas if Hamas killed over 90 journalists in 2 months? And then when asked about killing journalists, they would say, they should evacuate the colonized area. They didn't evacuate the area we said we would attack. If you guys want to be part of the colonized Israel, you fair game. Can you imagine what people would say if Hamas said that? That's what Israel said. When asked about the journalists, well, we gave journalists attention to leave. Why are you in Gaza? Why are you helping Hamas? They are active targets because anyone helping Hamas in any way, including telling their stories, is a fair target. So what that says, CJ, I'll pass to you for your next segment. I got a short segment. I have a. I'm gonna pass it to you. I have a segment. I'm gonna talk about Operation Garden.
Mine is connected to that.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
No, I was gonna say mine. What I'm gonna do is basically talk about what's happening to the Iranian guy. The Iranian general was killed, but that leads into because of what's happening with Yemen. So it's perfect. We can start with one or the other. We can start with yours and do mine, and then start with mine and do yours. So either way,
if you have stuff that connects, do you mind if I do a propaganda segment? It's a short segment because I think that will lead into it very well.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm still going to talk about it because there's a lot to talk about. I have a hotspot video coming out. You guys know how I am. I do a lot of research for my hotspot videos. The hotspot videos are very fun to make. They're very catchy. they're designed for a different demographic than people usually watch long RBN live streams. But every time I do a house party, I'm like, man, I definitely got to do a longer form to explain to you guys what I really fucking found. You know what I mean? So you have Houthis, the government of Yemen, to be 100% clear, that are showing themselves to be heroes. The only country that is actually following the Genocide Convention, do you guys know that? Is Yemen. So everybody in the world should be cheering for Yemen, because according to the Genocide Convention, and I'm gonna show you guys the receipt. I'm gonna try and pull it up here. Here it is. Let me share my screen here. And this is what no one's gonna tell you on anyone else other than RBN. I know, because I've been looking. No one else is playing this. This is the only coverage you get on our channel. So there is the Genocide Convention that A1 likes to quote, especially during the Russian-Ukraine war. Do you guys know in the Genocide Convention, they established that every single state party have an obligation to take measures to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. And capitalists, oh my God, Yemen going too far because they are impacting trade. Now look at what they say here. And this is in Article 4. Whether they are constitutionally responsible rulers, public official, or private individuals. Repeat after me, ladies and gentlemen. Whether they are public officials, whether they are the rulers, or they are private individuals. So all those people are like, oh my God, you guys are protesting a business? Yeah, they fund Israel, but you can't do that. You can't protest business. Populists like Tucker Carlson, they be like, you can't protest business. That's mean. No, according to the Genocide Convention, you're supposed to. Everyone. And every country is not supposed to, well, they are supposed to go after the country that commit genocide. But not only that, they are supposed to go after private individuals that help the country commit genocide. Once again, RBN, a channel ran by college dropouts and revolutionary Negroes, we are the only people that quote law. We are the only people. Everyone else go with the vibe. Man, I don't know. I don't like them all, man. Oh, man, I like the Yemen. I like what the Houthis do in the spirit, but I don't condone attacking ships. I'm a pacifist. I'm a pacifist in the most violent empire in human history, but I'm going to weaponize my pacifism against people who resist that empire. I'm a deeply serious person. I'm a moral person. Don't you? Am I a good person? Tell me I'm a good person. That's what people believe. RBN, we're the only people who don't condemn acts of resistance, violence or not, and that's why RBN thought us more than anyone else. That's why we've been shadow banned as hell. And I'm sorry for you guys. I'm sorry. I apologize for the team for that, because my ignorance be making these segments doing this. So anyway, let me move on. I don't want to belabor that point too much. So the funniest thing, before I pass to you, I'm gonna show you guys the propaganda segment where they talk about a few things, and we're gonna break it down what they're talking about. And later on in this segment, they're gonna cover this part about the Red Sea and Operation Prosperity Guardian. So I'm gonna shut up and let it play, because there's gonna be a lot to say about this. It's only 4 minutes, you see, so it's not gonna be too long, and it's a good lead into the story. So let's watch this. And by the way, later tonight, I have another clip I'm gonna break down. Bro, Fox News been on something, fam. And I only watch the foreign policy segments of Fox News. I can't stand anything else. I only watch the foreign policy segment. Bro, they released multiple pro-war segments today on China, on the Houthi. Like, bro, it's like every day. I got multiple videos to break down. To save you guys time, I'm gonna do one later tonight. But let's watch this one.
This, Nick, let me just say,
go ahead.
This was the original intro video that you're about to play.
So funny.
Let's go. This was the original, this was the original intro video. Yeah. And like I said, there's 2 Fox News. It was between this and the other one, but this is the one I was gonna go with. But yeah, they've been, especially when it comes to Iran. They are very big Iran hawks. I noticed on Fox News, they always pushing more and more war with Iran. But go ahead.
I find these segments interesting because MSNBC and CNN are just as pro-war as Iran as Fox News. It's interesting the strategy they do it. To me, I'm like more of a nerd now than I've ever been. Like, I'm interested in the strategy the establishment use that weird enough. You know what I mean? So in order to get liberals on board with the war on Iran, they got the Iranian revolution. You see how Iran treating women, CJ? Look how they're treating women over there, even though we support Saudi Arabia. Even though we literally got states ran by fascist governors that want to tell people what they can do with their body autonomy, right? But look how Iran treat the women. That's the liberal way to get people to hate Iran. Then there's the conservative way, they're just straight out pro-war, which you're going to see here. So there's like the gentle side of imperialism, which liberals master, and they trick progressives like Bernie Sanders to follow. And then you have the right-wing version of selling war, which I don't understand how it works on anybody, to be clear. But they do a good cops bad cop thing. Let's watch it.
All right, we have another big story here. A Fox News alert: growing tensions for the U.S. forces in the Middle East. The Navy shooting down anti-ship ballistic missiles launched by Houthis in the Red Sea. It was the first time the Navy has ever done this in battle.
More than 100 U.S. bases have been targeted by Iran proxies since October, including a
over 100 attacks on U.S. forces at U.S. bases. Where?
Oh,
CJ. You guys know how many segments I watched on this story about soldiers being attacked in Iraq and Syria? And out of all the stories talking about soldiers being attacked, you know how many of them like ask the question like, why are we there? None of them. CJ, and you're gonna see it throughout the segment. They will, with a straight face, they will do a whole segment talking about, oh my God, U.S. soldiers being attacked in Iraq and Syria. This is an outrage. Why would they do that? And no one in the panels, no one in the conversation, like, maybe they're attacking the soldiers because they are illegally occupying their country. Imagine what the United States would do if there were Chinese and Russian soldiers walking down Main Street. Nigga, we would look at them like, these motherfuckers. Nigga, get my Glock. Nigga, get these niggas right now. And that's essentially what happened in Syria and Iraq. And you know what the establishment do and how they've been telling the story? They say that these Iran, quote unquote, backed rebels, they got orders from Iran to attack U.S. soldiers. And they never provide evidence of this because it's absurd at face value, right? There's no evidence that these Iranian-backed rebels, quote unquote, is getting direction from Iran. And I don't know. I don't think they need any motivation. So if we had Russia and China walking on Main Street, do you think we need fucking the UK to pressure us to attack them, CJ? Or are we going to do that on our own accord?
Point taken.
You guys see why I would never be invited on Fox News? You guys see how, like, not only is it easy to swat this shit down, it's very fun. And I'm very condescending when I do it. I'm very condescending. And while I'm never going to be on the hill again, never going to be on the hill, Robin feeling hurt was so bad because I am kind of condescending that he brought on his friend and like, oh, let's go through it. And they're like, man, let's just keep buying Savvy's on, nigga. Savvy's cool, nigga. Let's not invite Nick on. Never ever fucking kidding. But anyway, let's continue the video. I'm gonna have fun bucking this down. I'm gonna let it play a little bit long. I promise. I'll let it play a little bit long before I chime in. I just thought that was a funny part to chime in on because I want you guys to listen to their absurd logic again. Them being offended at a country defending itself.
Houthis in the Red Sea. It was the first time the Navy has ever done this in battle.
More than 100 U.S. bases have been targeted by Iran proxies since October, including a Christmas Day attack in Iraq that injured 3 troops, leaving 1 in critical condition.
Yeah, to give us some more expertise on this, our next guest knows all about fighting the war on terror. We're having retired Navy Commander Kurt Lippold, and he's joining us now. Commander, thank you for joining us. We've talked about this. I kind of feel like I'm beating a war drum here, but that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yes, it is, sir. One thing, I watch propaganda so much. I love seeing the humanity of them come out every once in a while. You know what I mean, CJ? So they're not gonna stop doing their propaganda, but then they catch themselves like the humanity. They're like, oh my God, nigga, what are you doing? So he's like, I'm not trying to press the war drums. That's his conscience, fam. Why would you say that? Because that is definitely what you're doing. You're gonna watch the segment. You're gonna see exactly what he's doing. But the humanity of these people come out every so often, CJ, and it's interesting to me. Because they're a good actor, but they're not that good. Every once in a while, they would have a tell, and that was that guy's tell. This is where he admits what he's doing right here.
He's joining us now. Commander, thank you for joining us. We've talked about this. I kind of feel like I'm beating a war drum here, but that's not what I'm trying to do. My concern is that my brothers and sisters, to include my own nephew in one of these carrier strike groups, they're already at war. They're targets in water and on land. and we're not taking that seriously here at home, perhaps even the administration. Give us your assessment of all of these attacks. And
if you want to protect your brother home and don't put them in danger by having them occupy a country full of motherfuckers who will attack one motherfucker if they're occupied. People wonder why troops got so much PTSD. The United States put their troops in danger. And then they turn around and say, oh my God, we love to protect the troops, and people cheer. It's like, you guys are putting soldiers in danger by having them occupy countries, and then they blame the countries for attacking them. But I let it to you. I'm sorry.
Now, 3 service members injured, 1 in critical condition.
Well, Joey, I think you're absolutely right. Right now, the United States is in a period of extreme strategic danger. When you look at what is happening globally between Russia, China, and now especially with Iran, when we send our young men and women forward to defend our national security interests around the globe, there's an expectation.
When we send they say boys and girls, I forgot how they said boys and girls out, it's to defend national security interests. Hey, CJ, men and women. Can you imagine if you're a young, and I said the joke before, but can you imagine if you're a young, dumb, patriotic American and you want to protect U.S. national interests, and then they send your ass to the Red Sea to protect Israel as they committed a genocide? That's why I try not to be too hard on these people, because these people are misled and propaganda like everyone else. These people are like, man, I want to serve my country. I want to protect people. I want to join the military to protect people. That's the propaganda they're fed their entire life. This is why, hence, they are dumb. And then they get sent to Syria. Then they get sent to Iraq and die for no reason.
That if something were to happen to them, there will be a response by the U.S. government. I lived through the fact that our government didn't respond to the attack on my ship when 17 sailors were killed. Yeah. And when you look at over 100 attacks now on U.S. forces with virtually nothing being done, that is cause for concern for not only the young men and women that serve our great nation, but also the American people, because what it's sending a signal is that we are unwilling or unable to defend our national security interests around the globe.
Kurt, I want to ask you, why is it that...
And before he asks his question, I love Glenn said something recently I loved. He was talking to his audience, he like, as someone who lived in Brazil, you gotta know it's not normal for countries just to talk about what countries they're gonna go to war. Like when you hear like Lula talk, they talk about what's going on in their country. Like if you hear like an Argentina president talk, they talk about what's going on. Well, Argentina politician, any politician in the global south, the Mexican president, Mexican politician talking about what's going on in Mexico. It's not normal for a country like, who we attack next? Who we gonna invade next? That's weird. And that part being a part of an evil empire, but I'll let him continue his question.
This administration has not redesignated these Houthis as a terrorist organization. One of the first things President Biden did when he came into office in February is remove that designation. And now they have been launching attack after.
They removed that designation in order to help facilitate peace in Yemen and end the genocide in Yemen, which the Biden administration is now trying to undo. But Fox News is not going to mention that. Fox News is not going to mention the neocon things Biden has done because he don't want their audience to accidentally like him. This segment is hilarious because they do this thing where they're like, why is Biden not doing enough? And then they report the United States attacked Houthi rebels. They bombed Syria. I'm like, who do you think's doing that? But anyway, let's continue.
Remember in November, that video of armed Houthi rebels, it looked like a Hollywood movie taking a cargo ship. If that's not terrorism, I don't know what is.
Griff, you're absolutely right. And why the Biden administration has not moved more swiftly to designate them as a terrorist organization. They moved from a disenfranchised minority that challenged the government that was Saudi Arabia backed earlier, several years ago, and they've created problems. But now Iran is using them as one of their proxies to continue to disrupt and destabilize the Middle East. They're giving them weapons that are now being used in a...
You guys see how they say they are Iranian proxies? No evidence of that. And I want to emphasize, there's no evidence of that. So the Houthis in Yemen, do they share common cause and common foreign policy and common enemies with Iran and some things? Yes. But would the establishment accept the line that France and the UK, Spain, and everyone in Europe are United States proxies because they share common international interests? You guys see the language they use to describe our enemies? So the Houthis in Yemen, the Houthis of the Yemen government, Yemen is a proxy of Iran because they share common enemies. But the UK is now a proxy of the United States according to the establishment. But anyway, I need to shut up. I want to let it finish because there's a certain point we want to get to, and I'll pass to you. There's a reason why I wanted to leave with this first, because I think it leads into the Operation Prosperity Guardian. So I'll shut up for a bit. I'll let it play a little bit. Here we go.
Terroristic fashion, and so consequently they should be designated as a terrorist organization. But at the end of the day, Griff, I think what you have to look at is we have to solve the problem, not the symptom, and the problem is Iran. We must at some point come to grips with the fact that Iran is behaving as a terrorist nation, and they are threatening not only us, not only Israel, but the entire region.
So the
United States soldiers was attacked because we illegally occupied 2 countries. So in response, we must go to war with another country. That is what the very smart guy in the suit just said, CJ. Do you guys understand how that makes no sense? Let's continue.
The United States has announced this coalition of 10 countries to respond to these attacks in the Red Sea by the Houthis. It was about 2 weeks ago that announcement was made, and clearly that hasn't been a significant enough deterrent. So what should the United States do? And not just the U.S. I mean, these missile attacks in the Red Sea are targeting ships from countries around the world.
Cardi, I think what it's going to come down to is one simple but very effective word, and that is leadership. President Biden needs to exhibit the kind of leadership that the nation is yearning for right now. When we started with this coalition that we were building to protect maritime traffic in the Red Sea, the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, the Gulf of Aden, the bottom line is many countries said they were willing to participate but not allow their ships to come under U.S. control. Why? Because they don't have faith in U.S. leadership right now that we're going to put together a coalition that is going to be able to defend it. And so consequently, what you have is the United States is not acting in a manner that is going to safeguard that maritime traffic, and you're going to have these shipping companies that are going to continue to be reluctant to send their ships through the Suez Canal, through the Red Sea, and consequently you have a disruption of maritime traffic around the world, which the United States cannot afford because that sends a signal to China when it comes to the South China Sea.
It is all connected. Kurt Lippold, retired Navy commander, thank you so much for joining us.
He just hitting all the nails on the head there, CJ. And I got a few receipts I want to share about. I'm going to pass it here soon. But one thing I want to say before I pass it to you, CJ. Everyone in anti-imperialist Twitter /X, we laughed when this announcement was made because we were like, yes, another embarrassment for the United States. Neocon Twitter was like, the Houthis in Yemen think they're going to stop us. And they was so smart, like, we got Operation Prosperity Guardian. We're going to show those terrorist thugs. You guys think you can resist the empire? All the unhinged neocons, that's what they were saying. They were saying, oh my God, you guys, the Houthis are screwed. Fam, these morons. Do you guys know how big the Red Sea is? Do you guys know the Red Sea is the size around California? And they got like around 6 to 7 ships committed to this mission, CJ. So imagine you wanted to stop crime in California with 6 to 7 patrol cars. Good luck with that, fam. Which why the operation fell apart. And I'm gonna get to that more soon. But I want to pass you, CJ, for
Yeah. We got it's all connected. But let's get to this part of the story before we get to that. And I'm glad we're gonna sort of end this sort of section with that. But let me bring up this just to start with the headline. And it's like I said, this is all connected, and it's good that I'm bringing this up because we're talking about the attacks in Syria with that last segment that you brought up, Nick, the hundreds of attacks. What now? Why the hell are we in Syria would be the first question. Now, in Syria also, what has recently happened is an attack by Israel. And this is another thing that people who support Israel and their supposed fight against Hamas is that Israel's also fighting against a lot of people. They're not just bombing Gaza. They're bombing Syria. They're bombing Lebanon. They're bombing a lot of different places. Now, with that bombing came with this news here. And it says, breaking, Israel targeted and killed a senior Iranian IR IRGC commander in Syria. And a senior commander, and I think it's Saeed Razi Mazavi, who was responsible for supporting, now this is what they say, axis of resistance, this is what they call it, was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Damascus, Syria. Now, this is a picture of him, and he's on the on our graphic. If you've seen our graphic here, and this is just part of the story. I do want to show a couple of receipts here just to show the reaction of what's going on in Iran.
I'm gonna say this real quick, CJ.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this just real quick, and this is why I condemn the United States, the West, and their allies as strongly as humanly possible. Because despite the narrative that everyone in the United States was fed, because we are the most propagandized country in the world, people have no idea how restrained and patient Iran has been. You guys know that Iran is the only reason we're not in World War III. Their restraint, their leadership. The same goes with Nicolas Maduro. As everyone like to criticize Maduro in Iran, Maduro's foreign policy was amazing, and this is why he has support of his people. Because what a more hot-headed leader would do would be to engage the United States and fall for debate, because they want people to think that Maduro is like a crazy tyrant that's like who quick to flip a lid. But what they would never tell you, Nicolas Maduro had a strict policy of never allowing the United States to provoke them. No matter how much the United States steal, no matter what they did, Venezuela won't do anything to escalate tensions. And the United States pushed them a lot. And this was a brilliant strategy by Maduro, and it's acknowledged by many people in South America about this, because this strategy actually worked. Like over time, because Nicolas Maduro was handling himself like a diplomat, he won favor of leaders like Lula, the president of Colombia, Ivan Duque, if I remember. That's the wrong guy, but the president of Colombia, the new Social Democrat president of Colombia as well. AMLO warmed to him as well when they used to call him a tyrant, because of his geopolitical strategy. And that took the fangs out of the United States, which stopped them from escalating with Venezuela the way they had. That's why tensions started to normalize. Biden started to invite Maduro at the table when they want his regime gone. Now, that's a long way of saying that Nicolas Maduro had a great foreign policy to prevent the collapse of his state by an aggressive West. Now, Iran is doing the same thing, because while people pretend, like Tucker Carlson and others, that Trump is anti-war, Trump killed Soleimani, one of the top generals of Iran. What would happen if China, Russia, or the United States killed any top general in our country? We would be in World War fucking III. You know how many times we should have been in World War III, but we didn't because China showed restraint on Taiwan? Iran showed restraint. Nicolas Maduro showed restraint. The only reason we're not in constant war is because of this. So big shout for Iran for you see, they continue not to take the bait on this. But this may be too far with what Israel is doing. And you see, the reason why they did this is a strategy by Israel and the United States to continue to emasculate Iran and Russia and China. So we all know, and I'm sorry for being long on this, but we all know that generally people gain power. Politicians retain power by projecting strength. I'm here to defend my country. I'm going to defend my border. I'm going to be tough on my enemies, right? That work on like conservative-minded people around the world, right? Having a tough, strongman leader, a strongman country that's willing to stand up for itself. So the plan of the United States and Israel is to emasculate Iran, Russia, and China by constantly violating red lines like the United States is doing in Taiwan to make their leader weak and demoralize their people. That is actually a written out PSYOP strategy of the Mossad and the CIA. And that is what they do to Iran. Why do you think the West flipped out when Russia didn't allow that to happen in Ukraine? NATO wanted to emasculate Russia with provocations on this red line in Ukraine. And then Russia said, fuck you guys, I'm invading Ukraine. And now Russia about to win that war. Now they're melting down, right? Anyway, sorry on that spill. But I want you guys to know, Iran, we don't know what's going to happen after this. A lot of people are promising escalation, but they always do. My prediction is we're going to see a measured response. There's going to be a response, but Iran has been consistently measured. You can criticize how they run domestic policies all you want, But foreign policy, as someone who followed it for a long time, Iran had prevented wars over and over and over again. But what I said, that's my last little add-on to this. I know I had a lot to say on this.
Yeah,
but go ahead, CJ.
no worries. Yeah, so just a couple more receipts to talk about this as we continue with the story, and that is this headline from the Cradle: Iran vows retaliation after top commander killed in an Israeli attack on Syria. And I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs here. The IRGC vowed to make Israel pay the price after confirming that General Razi, a top commander in the IRGC, was killed during an Israeli strike on the 25th of December in the vicinity of Damascus. In a statement, the IRG said the general was killed in a criminal missile attack by the fake and child-killing Zionist regime. Wow, that's a great description. In a criminal missile attack by the fake and child-killing Zionist regime, added that Tel Aviv will undoubtedly pay the price for this crime. And that is the IRGC responding to this murder. Go ahead.
Guys, all these leaders, guys, these fucking people not pattern. They promote a strongman image. I am not saying Iran won't do anything, but they said the same thing when Soleimani died. They say the same thing when the United States pulled out the nuclear deal. They do all these. They always say that when the United States escalated, when they stole billions of Iranian currency or gold. I mean, they were like, oh, well, we got to respond to this. They say that to alleviate them being emasculated. You know what I mean? They go to the audience. They go to their people in their country and say, we're not going to allow this to stand. And then they don't do shit. You know, that's what politicians do. So we see what happens. But, man, this is another example of the West and Israel poking at Iran and daring them to do something. And they want this war with Iran more than ever, CJ. And they want to sign off on something like this to make it happen. The same way with Trump killing Soleimani. They expect them to respond more. But go ahead, CJ.
You know, I was just going to say, to the point that you were making when they said, oh, we're going to do these retaliations, we're going to do this retaliatory sort of moves because they have to quail their own people. And this is just an example. Yeah. This is a reaction in Tehran. Go ahead.
And to give another example real quick, and I'll pass back to you. Remember when China was pretending to be tough regarding Nancy Pelosi in Taiwan? Remember that whole saga where China was like, I swear to God, Pelosi's coming to Taiwan, shit about to pop off. I swear to God, about to pop off. Then Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. Then China was like, oh, you guys did it now. Y'all did. Oh, it's fucking on. Oh, I'm going to get them. And that's what they were saying to appease their people. And you know, you guys want to know what China did? They did a military drill. That was the response. So I want you guys to know, the countries do this all the time. And then the media come back and say, you guys see what Iran said? This is why we need war with Iran. This is why I kind of put back on it. Because, guys, they've been having restraint this entire time. Sorry, CJ, I'll pass back to you if you want anything you want to continue with.
No, that's perfect. Just showing some reaction. That one is no audio on both of these videos. This is just showing the reaction in Tehran, in Iran, about the killing of this general, just showing that there's protests in the streets. I'll put it on mute, but you can see it. This is the protest that's happening in the streets in the previous video I played without the sound. Also just showing the reaction of this. So a government has to respond to this. You know, your people is out in the streets because of a military general is killed. You can't just go, oh, we're not going to do anything. You have to say, yeah, we're going to do this. Yes, we're going to do that. Now, that's not to say, Nick, that this, something like this doesn't pave the way to some sort of escalation.
Yeah, for sure.
I just don't think it's it's not a one for one sort of thing. Like they do this, they do that. But these sort of acts are all sort of like building blocks to that Middle East war. Go ahead with your
remember nothing happened for accident. Like when we look back at history, if there is a big global conflict, they'll be part of the building blocks. You know what I mean? Like when you look at World War I, World War II, you can say that World War I started because of assassination in that Archduke or whatever. But then many smart historians are like, no, there was a lot of fucking other pieces to that puzzle. Oh, before that, this could be like one of the pieces before the tragic war that we could possibly see next year. There'll be one thing that we talk about. Oh, this is one thing that happened that led to the increased tensions that led to this. But so that's a great point, CJ. That's a great point. Go ahead. You can continue.
And I must say, a lot of what I read, I don't know if you've read similar, is that the sentiment I get is that they're being restrained, or almost they're having to be restrained, is as a military strategy. That's great, but also because of Turkey and Jordan sort of sitting on the fence in this region, because they're allies with the U.S., so they're kind of sitting on the fence, not allowing people who are more radical in this area to sort of feel like they would have all the solidarity in that region. But that's another story. I know we're going off of a tangent. But let me just play this to just give more background information. Then I'm going to pass it back to you, Nick, for the operation, for the Yemen operation part. But let's listen to this just to give us more foundational information about the killing, and then the response from Iran.
Iran has warned that Israel will pay after a senior member of its Revolutionary Guard was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Syria. Razi Mousavi was killed in the Zainabiyah area in the suburbs of the Syrian capital Damascus. He was considered one of the closest IRGC commanders to General Qasem Soleimani, the former Al-Quds leader who was killed in a U.S. drone attack. Let's get more on this from Ali Hashim. He's joining us live from Nakura in southern Lebanon, a very high-profile figure, Ali. What more are you hearing about the strike?
Well, according to our sources, Razi al-Mousawi came to his Zainabiyah residence after meeting the Iranian ambassador in Damascus. Just a few minutes after his arrival, 3 missiles hit his residence and he was killed immediately. Some of his escorts, his entourage, were injured. But the fact is that Razi al-Mousawi, according to our sources, was subject to 2 assassination attempts during the past years. He was an instrumental figure within the Quds force that was led before by Qasem Soleimani and now by Ismail Qaani, which is part of the IRGC, the Iranian IRGC. He was the guy responsible for transporting and transferring weapons from Iran to Iraq, to Syria, to Lebanon, also to the Palestinian factions. And
so, as this report is saying, that this is one of the guys that's responsible for supplying, essentially what I said in that other article, supplying the axis of resistance. You hear him mention Lebanon, you hear him mention Palestinians. These are the people who are in the resistance movement. They do call these groups the sort of the axis of resistance. Now, I'll play this last 30 seconds here, Nick, because you might be asking. I'm going to pass it back to you. You might be asking, well, why doesn't we go in and just take these Houthis out? That's causing this trouble for Operation Prosperity guidance. Now listen to this guy answer the question of why aren't we doing more against Yemen?
Been counterstrikes in both Syria and Iraq. There have not been counterstrikes that have specifically targeted Houthis in Yemen. Why not?
Well, the big thing here, I think, when you look at the broader Middle East, is there are several different factors here. This is a very difficult area for us to go after, and there's still a possibility that there may be counterstrikes against the Houthis in Yemen. One of the reasons that it hasn't happened yet, the intelligence picture on the Houthis is not as good as it is against the forces in Iraq, the Iranian paramilitary groups, Iranian associated paramilitary groups, and that is one of the reasons why the Houthis are not being attacked right now. Also, keep in mind, when Saudi Arabia had their war with the Houthis, they didn't do so well, and we don't want to get into that same question.
So basically, the Houthis in Yemen, they some down-ass Negroes, Nick. They don't play with them motherfuckers. They're some real ass motherfuckers. They're like the niggas from Compton, you know what I'm saying? The niggas from the street. Like, wait. How come you ain't going into that house? Oh no. That's the real niggas over there. So when we decide to go to that house, we gotta be like on our shit, and we don't have the intelligence. Basically, there's the people, the Houthis and the Yemens on selling out people, so they don't have the intelligence in that area. And the last time they had a fight, they whooped some ass. So we ain't trying to really fuck with them. And I'll pass it back to you for the
Yemen defeated the U.S. Saudi-led coalition, which led the U.S.-led Saudi coalition to be so desperate that they started to starve thousands of children. Led to genocide in Yemen. Now you guys see why it was so important for the United States to win that war, even if it means starving the population and committing war crimes by blocking the Saudi blockade. It was extremely important for the United States to get the Red Sea to prevent something like this from happening. And they was willing to starve as many people with a genocide in Yemen in order to get control of the Red Sea. Now you guys see why it's so important. Because like you said, CJ, that was a hilarious bit. Yemen is some real motherfuckers. They real. You remember this headline, CJ, when we initially covered this story? Where, and I love, bro, Neocon Twitter was on something else, man, because they were like, yes, Operation Prosperity Guardian, we about to get those Houthis. Gotta get those Houthis. Gotta get them. And meanwhile, everyone else was laughing at him. Like, and the Houthi was laughing too. Like, you know the motherfucker that really, the person you don't want to mess with, because this is who I was. I always know how to box. Like the person who get in conflict, who's not about that shit, they're like, hey, what's good, bro? Let's go. Square up, homie. What's good, homie? Nigga, you don't want to box? What's good? Whenever I see someone do that, I'm like, this about to be easy. Because you know what I do when I was in conflict? I would laugh. You about to make a mistake. You don't want to fuck with me, bro. I did more time for 12 years. You know, you calm. You're like, bro, you don't want to do this. That's what a real person would say if they really know how to defend themselves. So when Operation Prosperity Guardian was announced, the West was like, oh, the Houthis must be shaking in their boots. No, the Houthis was like, oh, bro, we wish you would. And they said, Yemen says they will turn the Red Sea into a graveyard after the U.S. announces maritime coalition. So they're like, bro, if you want to die today, come to the Red Sea. So the Yemen, showing how hard they are, you have France and Spain. That was like, they saw that threat, CJ. They was like, the Houthi was like, we're going to turn the Red Sea to the graveyard. Spain and France was like, shit. Shit. You got this, bro. Did I say I was going to do that? No, I didn't say anything. I don't know what y'all talking about. I ain't say anything. They said they're going to turn the Red Sea to a graveyard, bro. Hell no. Hell no. I'll never find someone to say that. So this is the hell. Look, this is hilarious. Cracks in the Red Sea alliance underline U.S.-Europe division. Embarrassment of United States leadership. What is the narrative that they've been telling you in Morning Joe and corporate media that love Democrats, right? They've been telling you that Biden does such a great job because he unified the civilized world. Nuh-uh. And remember the story I showed you guys earlier before. Gaza completely undermined them. There's gonna be an article I'm gonna cover later that covers in great detail in the Guardian. It's not a socialist perspective and not anti-imperialist perspective. It's them lamenting the move that Biden made in Gaza. He's like, bro, you guys supporting the genocide in Gaza just undermine everything we said about Ukraine. He was like a big Ukraine war hawk. He's like, bro, we just said we stood for peace and not killing kids, and you guys just fucked it up for us. We can't say that no more. You guys think Europe don't see that? You think all these people don't see that? And they explain how people see this hypocrisy. And I'm gonna cover this article in great detail maybe later tonight because this is a fantastic article, and I want to read every single quote. We don't got time for it today. I may do it on stream later today. That's why I want to do an extra stream. Look at this headline. Why the U.S. double standards on Israel and Russia play into a dangerous game. The West equivocation on Gaza exposes a global order facing mutiny over its domination of the international discourse. You guys see how this article is good. It is. But it's like, woe is us. Woe is us. The U.S. credibility is falling. So you guys know why this is connected? Because the United States, who have no moral credibility, they can't just call up a coalition like this anymore. These countries don't want to be associated with the United States because they know that Yemen is the only country that is being compliant with the genocide conventions. And do you want to be seen committing troops and investing in a country that's doing everything they can to stop a genocide when the majority of the world is against the genocide, which leads to the embarrassing situations like we see here? Now I'll just read a little bit of this and now move on, and then we move on. Let me. A just cause enjoys I'll read a little bit there. A just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support. No one feels this snippet of wisdom more deeply than the United States is now. A spokesman for Spain's defense ministry told AFP on Sunday that the country will not participate in the so-called Operation Prosperity Guardian. AUS, like that pretty much explain what it is. So Lloyd Austin did a press conference like, we got Spain, we got France, and then niggas Spain and France like, they don't put us in this. Like, you did that fight when you're in the fight on the backyard as a kid. And you're like, hey, CJ, you got my back, right? You know, no, that motherfucker huge. No, you got my back. No. That's pretty much what this was. And this is massively embarrassing. You guys obviously see how much I'm enjoying the story, right? I'll just read another paragraph. I know you probably got a few more things you want to share. Obviously, the U.S. European allies are no longer willing to foot the bill of U.S. selfishness. Operation Prosperity Guardian, organized by the U.S., has a strong political overtone. That is, safeguarding Israel's national interests. Israel's action in Gaza have aroused the anger of the international community. More than 20,000 Palestinians have reportedly been killed, more than 50,000 injured, and much of Gaza has been destroyed. Some European countries have begun to diverge from the United States on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. The objective of the United States creating the Red Sea Alliance, on the other hand, is testing whether its allies share the same belief on this issue. On the other hand, Washington is levering multilateral diplomatic actions to cover up its unilateral support of Israel. The U.S. allies always support the U.S. and share its stance, but that does not mean they will unlimitedly support the frenzied position taken on by the United States on all its issues. Now, I'm gonna show you guys this, because this article kind of breaks down what each country says. Man, I hate Reuters more than almost any other website. This is like a summary. Let me go down here. When this was first announced, it was hyped up so much in the corporate media and was getting on neocon Twitter. We were like, oh, it's over for the Houthis, but they will never explain what it actually was. This is what Prosperity Guardian always was, which is why this is embarrassing, right? And this is why they're dismayed, because they said the ships would stay under French command, and they're not going to change anything other than their already agreed security arrangements. That's essentially the position of France. Italy straight up said, hey, we don't know what the hell Biden's talking about, bro. We are not part of Operation Prosperity Guardian. So that's like the position of like Italy and Spain, like, so Lloyd Austin lied about us. We didn't agree to this. And look, this is Britain. Britain said destroyer HMS Diamond would join Operation Prosperity Guardian. Britain Defense Ministry said the coalition will operate as part of the U.S. CMF. So look at the devastation that's going to be led by the Houthis. Remember, the Red Sea, the size of California, CJ. So they got one cop car that's going to patrol the entire Red Sea. The cop car in this situation is called the HMS Diamond. The HMS Diamond is going to patrol the entirety of the Red Sea, the size of California. This is what they told you is going to be used to stop the Houthis in Yemen. So, CJ, anything else you want to add? This is why this is extremely embarrassing. And it shows exactly what we've been saying of the United States losing influence and power. But I'll pass it back to you if you have anything else you want to add, CJ.
Yeah, just a couple of receipts I want to show here, because I had the same story prepared. But you showed most of the receipts I had already. But except for this one here is a pretty interesting video. This is let me just play it, and let me not preface it. Let me just play it.
The Palestinian flag is painted onto a Houthi helicopter as they film themselves taking over a cargo ship in the Red Sea. The fighters have increased attacks on vessels in the Bab al-Mandeb Strait since the start of Israel's war on Gaza, and they've become far more sophisticated in their methods. It's causing a ripple effect in one of the world's most important shipping routes.
It will have an impact, an inflation shock on the global economy if it increases. We already saw European gas prices jump by.
So we have to, the reason I wanted to show this, because I want to make sure we understand what the Yemen government is doing. We call them Houthis, but this is the Yemen government. This is not some sort of thrown together rinky dink. This is a well thought out strategy that is affecting capitalists where it matters to them, and that's their pocketbook. And this is as simple as them having to reroute and take an extra 10 days to go around Africa instead of going through the Red Sea. That right there is just causing capitalists to spend more money. Now, they could do it, Nick. No problem. And not have any war, no conflict, but they can't do it when you're a capitalist and everything about you being capitalist is saving money somewhere, exploiting something somewhere, and they want to exploit the strait that's right here through the Red Sea, the shipping corridor. And I'm just loving what Yemen is doing, attacking these commercial vessels. And what I also love is how their reaction, these commercial vessels basically saying, dude, what are we going to do here, bro? We can't do anything. We just going to have to go around and pay extra money. But the U.S., of course, the leading capitalists, the leading imperialists have to say, no. We're going to find a way where we're going to get through here by any means necessary, even if that includes what they tried to put together here with this maritime coalition. And it was easy to spot, Nick, that this shit was going to fall apart because the other countries weren't all on board with this. They weren't all like, oh, yeah. They were never so like amped up about this. And I'll just read this and pass it back to you. This is Danny Haifong saying, France, Spain, and Italy have withdrawn from the U.S.-led naval alliance against the Houthis or Yemen. The U.S. has already admitted to lacking the number of warships to adequately combat the Houthis' capabilities. Modern day Rome burning. I love that from Danny. But go ahead, Nick. You were gonna say something or had another receipt, sir?
Yeah. I'm trying to think about whether I'm probably gonna read this more in detail to later. I'll just read a little bit of the intro for the sake of this particular segment. I'll read this because this is related, and I'm gonna read more of the quotes in detail later because it's a pretty long article talking about the double standards on Israel and Russia. Because what this analysis is summing up what's happening here in Prosperity Guardian. I'll read just a little bit of it, and we can wrap this segment up. Richard Haas, the distinguished global analyst, once wrote, consistency in foreign policy is a luxury policymakers cannot always afford. Now, I want to look at that line. Isn't that interesting, the mindset of the establishment? You guys see how they always work backwards from the conclusion to justify why the establishment is full of criminals and liars? Oh, you can't always expect a politician to be principled. You guys see how they lower the expectations of the ruling class? And even the progressives are guilty of that. Oh, you can't expect John Fetterman not to be a Zionist? Oh, yes, we can. Oh, yeah, we can expect the politicians to be consistent on foreign policy. We don't support people like RFK Jr. who pretend they like peace in one area, but they don't like peace in this area. You got to be consistent. Inconsistency and being a hypocrite is one of the surefire signs of corruption. So let me continue, because I don't want to go off too out topic. Let me continue. But equally, glaring national hypocrisy can come with a high price tag. So this is the establishment saying, hey, you can lie about a little bit, you can propagandize a little bit, but there's a line, bro. That's how crazy the Biden administration is, CJ. The Biden administration is so crazy. Professional propagandists is like, bro, you guys can't do this. Like, you can't go this crazy. You can get away with a lot of shit, but not this. Not this amount of hypocrisy. They talk about the high price tag in terms of lost credibility, damaged global prestige, and diminished self-respect. So Joe Biden's decision, I'm actually glad I read this with you here. So Joe Biden's decision to defend Israel's method in Gaza so soon after, in a different context, CJ, they condemned the Russia invasion in Ukraine. It's not just an occasion for hand-wringing from liberals and lawyers. And they explain this hypocrisy is already having a real-world impact on relations between the global North and South and West and East, creating consequences that could reverberate for decades. The Biden administration, reluctant to change course, may say parallels between Gaza and Ukraine are far from exact. Good luck making that argument. You know, Russia, who relocated less children than the government you supported killed. Good luck making that argument. That's saying that Putin's war crime is somehow worse than Hitler Netanyahu. But then they acknowledge, but it also seems to know it is gradually losing diplomatic support. And they are losing diplomatic support because they were trying to make an impossible argument to make. Now, there's only one more part I want to read. Actually, this is a good part too. Anyway, the other part I wanted to read when they call out John Sullivan, because this is a long article, because they quote multiple leaders, but they point out how John Sullivan pretending that killing civilians, you know, the quote the video that we played of them saying, "Oh, but Russia bombing hospital, they're killing civilians, is the worst thing ever." They quoted that saying, "Oh, the Biden administration condemned that, but they're okay with Israel killing civilians." And this open hypocrisy is harming the United States on the world stage, even to its allies, because remember, there's a lot of social democrats who are, for the lack of a nicer term, just dumb. And I'm summing this article up just for the sake of time. There are social democrats that are dumb. So in the article they explain there are a lot of people in like Finland, Sweden, in Europe who are social democrats who was against Russia because they have Putin derangement syndrome. But they really did believe that they were fighting for good. Whether I know that sounds crazy for us, but they opposed Putin because they thought they were fighting evil. They thought they were fighting a threat to Europe. That's why they support Ukraine. And then the United States was like, "Oh, come on, we care about human rights. We care about sovereignty." And a lot of, once again, I cannot stress enough, dumb social democrats believe the United States. And this is what they all say in the article. I read the whole thing. A lot of these people actually thought the United States cared about civilians because of Ukraine. And a lot of these sweet summer children are realizing that was a ruse. And a lot of people who are acting in good faith, they don't like being tricked. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the ones who are acting in good faith. The people who not, they know it was a ruse. But the people who truly wanted to stand up against Russia for human rights, they like these motherfuckers. Especially since their economy is shambles, especially since a lot of European countries want to invest into the Ukraine war while the United States is pulling out, right? But anyway, that's my last thought. I got a lot more that to break down. And I'm also going to cover a segment that you may have seen where they melting down about, I think CNN is a propaganda segment where they melting down about Ukraine funding drying up. But anyway, I may bounce because I got CJ, if you don't mind, since we covered the Operation Prosperity Guardian and some Israel. I'm gonna bounce out to get ready for my stream later tonight. There's gonna be a lot of changes. Like YouTube is suppressing the shit out of us, so we got to make some change. We got to find a way to break the suppression. So we're gonna go back to that format where we got afternoon, evening. So I may jump on CJ sometime for maybe like half a show, maybe like an hour. I may jump on here to talk about some stuff. Now I'm gonna do my show later in the evening. That's just a new format we're gonna try out for a while. RBN, we always growing and evolving. So I'm gonna be back on later tonight. That's why I'm gonna leave a little bit early. Sorry I talked a lot, but CJ, I know you got a lot to cover for the rest of the show, so I'll pass it to you. I'll see you guys later tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I just got two short segments that are related. Before I get out of here, of course, the Ritchie Torres, I want to make sure we don't push that again. We have to push that several times. I'm going to cover the Ritchie Torres protest. And then the Max Boot video, I think I might cover too. But let's get to the Ritchie Torres protest. And I'll start with this headline. It says, political Q&A. Ritchie Torres is Israel's loudest House supporter. I mean, between Ritchie Torres and John Fetterman, they are neck and neck as some of the most staunchly unapologetic supporters of this Israeli regime or this genocidal regime. Let me read just a snippet from the article. Torres was ardently defending Israel well before he ran for Congress. But now in office, donors have appreciated the support. Despite running uncontested, now understand that, Ritchie Torres ran uncontested. He received more campaign contributions last cycle from pro-Israeli sources than any New York member other than House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Now, ask yourself that question. I'll pause here. Why would a guy being uncontested in a race that he's obviously going to win because he's uncontested receive donations from an Israeli PAC? Why would he still receive that, even though he's uncontested? Unless the money is to do something else, because it's not to elect him, right? I wanted to start there. Now let's get into the protest that we're going to be covering today. We're going to start with this tweet here. This one says, "There's no doubt Ritchie Torres heard me when I rightly called him an anti-Semite who silences Jews. He smirks. His smirk was very visible inches away." And this is, shout out to this account, Ganja Girl 2024, posting this video. She was at the protest. This is her angle from the protest. Now there's several angles from the same protest, and I will be showing, so just stay tuned for that. Here's the first video showing the protest, and let me set it up the right way. Ritchie Torres is at an event. He's on stage. Lots of people at this event, and then there's just different sort of protest actions that take place throughout this meeting. So it goes quiet. The protests start, then they stop the protest, get the protesters out, then somebody else begin protesting. That's sort of the narrative in this segment. So let's listen to the first video and watch. So that's Ritchie Torres right there in the middle. And then he's there. I forget the guy, the Republican's name, but you see him there on the screen, and whoever the host is right there. So I don't know if you were an elected representative and you were on the side of an issue that got this sort of reaction, would you re-examine that issue? Would you rethink it? Would you say, wow, why are so many people who, and these aren't people who are like supporters of murderers. These are people that saying, stop killing babies, stop killing innocent people, stop killing civilians. People who are screaming these things are now protesting me. Would you have a moment of self-reflection? Or does the money that line your pocket by AIPAC prevent you from that self-reflection? I think it's the latter. Let's let the video finish, and there's more content to cover on this protest by anti-genocider protesters. Like, I wouldn't be able to look at myself if I was Ritchie Torres. Like, the level of hiding you got to do in your own barrel, the level of having to alter your life because you are supporting something so egregious as genocide that people are yelling and screaming in your face. And believe me, if he didn't have these protectors, people would be at his throat for the support that he has for this genocidal government. couple of more videos. I'll read this. So Congressman Ritchie Torres and Mike Lawler, so that's the other person, Mike Lawler, decided to take up on their offer to promote Palestinian genocide in Gaza. And that's the 92nd Street, New York. It's some sort of global center for culture. That's where they're at. Global Center for Culture. But we had other plans and shut their whole event down. So this is their event. Let's see how it goes. I'm going to play a couple of videos here. There's the first one. So this is another angle. Looks like a nosebleed section. You can see the same sort of action happen in the other one. That's a lady that came for the event, apparently, and not the protest. She didn't understand what was going on. She came for the event and not the protest. But you can see these aren't just one or two protesters. These people came in deep. Like as they would say in the hood, these people came deep. And you can't somebody like Ritchie Torres, they can't no longer look at this guy. Look at this guy right here. Let's put the sound up on here. Look at him. The old guy he's upset that the youngsters aren't down with genocide like we are. That's what they're upset about. And let's listen some more to this protest. Like Ritchie Torres is a gleeful coon. Those are the worst kind. And those are the kind that I'm not one that preaches nonviolence. I don't do that because I do believe in it. But in this person right here, all I could say, he would get an ass whooping. Send him around this way. This guy. To gleefully with a smile support genocide to me is very disgusting. And you can see him kind of smirk throughout these clips. He's kind of smirking as to say, look at the peasants that's protesting and you guys are all behind these shields. Wait till it gets to the moment, Ritchie Torres, where there's not enough security to protect you. And that's a day I can't wait for people like you, like him. And Al Sharpton, I would say, is another one who gleefully sell out their community. And then when they're called onto it, they stand behind their guards, protected by, or from, I should say, the working class. Like in this video right here. It's pretty disgusting. There's another video. Look at this. Yeah. And then so I'm gonna play another angle. So they think they go back to their show. And then let's play some more here from here. Come on. No, it's not working. All right, I'll just click through it, and that'll make it a little bit faster here. Let's listen to this one now.
So I think certainly.
So they tried to start back up, and it also doesn't go well.
So I think certainly.
The genocide supporters want all the pro-Palestinians out. We want to support genocide in peace. Here's another one.
And I am a constituent of District 15. I lived there my entire life. I was born there. I was raised there. When you ran in 2022, you said you modeled yourself as someone like us. One of the working class and from the black community.
So, and don't kid yourself. These politicians, especially those who support genocide, are becoming more and more sophisticated with these public things because they know they're going to get protests. So they're stuffing these events with more of their supporters, vocal supporters, who are going to come out and sort of counter the protests. Because if you think these are just random people who didn't understand what was going to happen with these protests, because you've never seen in any other of the sort of unplanned protests where it was more grassroots, unplanned protests where the audience that is unsuspectingly hearing this protest happen, they're not usually participating and trying to shout down the people. It's usually one or two, but you're talking about this entire crew, this entire audience is trying to shout down protests who's calling for them to stop killing people. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I feel it feels like the audience was sort of set up in preparation for something that could happen like this, and it did happen like that, but it didn't stop them from protesting though. There's more. There's another angle here. This angle here may be the most clear of the same event. So let's listen from this. I think this is the fourth angle we're getting now.
Hide! We charge you with genocide! Ritchie Torres, we can't hide! We charge you with genocide! Ritchie Torres, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide! Ritchie Torres, we can't hide! We charge you with genocide! Ritchie Torres, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide! Ritchie Torres, you can't hide! We charge you with...
You see him? Ooh, like... Make sure these YouTube censors, like, this would absolutely be a guy that Rome and I would have a conversation with. And at the end of that conversation, he may look a little different, is all I would say. Because this guy, one thing I hate more, and I would say a lot of radicals despise more, for example, than a KKK member. You know who I hate more? Is a person of color, a black person, a person of color who sells their community out. That's way worse to me. And I'm trying to think something worse than that, but there isn't. So this smug this smug guy is he's smug because he knows he's protected by his coonery. That's what gives him the smugness. It's being able to give that grin if you're a house Negro to a field Negro, because I live a little bit better because I do sell out. So I'm able to live in a house because I sell out. That's the smirk that this guy is giving that to me deserves nothing but hands, if you will.
We charge you with genocide. Ritchie Torres, you can't hide.
It's an uneasy smirk, though. You can still tell that he is uneasy because he doesn't know if there's a real one in the audience that's gonna charge him. Like, you can tell he still feels a little bit uneasy, but I'm trying to put on a face that I'm smirking because he still doesn't know if there's a real one out there that's gonna literally attack him, that he is completely exposed. You think this
We charge you
think
with
this let me go back to the stage. You think this slow old white guy is gonna stop a real one from charging Ritchie Torres? Absolutely not.
Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Ritchie Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Ritchie Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Ritchie Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Ritchie Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
One of these, like if I had planned one of these, this is just a fantasy. If I had planned something like this, I would call up all the all the Samoan homies I know. The ones that's like 6'3", like 6'3" and above. Go deep, go like 20 deep with like 20 Samoans. Try tossing them out, motherfucker. Try tossing them out. I would love to see something like that, but that's just a funny thing.
Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Torres, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. We charge you with genocide.
So you can see some of the people being escorted out, and this is wonderful to see. And here is Colin. Shout out to Colin. He's been on the shows, helped co-host a couple of times. Here's his tweet: "Enjoying a night out to celebrate my holiday break to learn that Ritchie Torres is still a Zionist bitch. Uses our clip to justify his loyalty to Israel and blocks Indie News." So what Colin is referring to, that Ritchie Torres did use one of Indie News's videos to call something out that he wanted, and then he blocked them. So just a little more of the panel. I'll let this more play in the background as I speak, but here is another angle, and it's a longer video of it.
If one were to look,
Anyway, so we've seen this footage. It's just from a different angle. So I'll let this sort of play in the background. But lately, I would say in the last 6 months or so, Ritchie Torres has kind of gone viral as the #1 villain of progressives. I'm trying to think of someone who is looked at or despised more than Ritchie Torres, sort of by progressive fashions. I mean, it was Hakeem Jeffries. It was at a point, but I can't imagine, or I can't think of someone, maybe Fetterman. But Fetterman doesn't rile people up like this guy, Ritchie Torres. But let's look at a couple of headlines here I want to bring up and show about this guy, Ritchie Torres, and the headlines about this protest that made it to print media. So let's show a couple of those. This one from the Daily Beast. Baby Jesus doll left for Ritchie Torres vandalized by protesters on Christmas Day. That's one headline. That's brand new. This one right here, a day after being heckled for his Israeli views, Richard Torres gets a hero's welcome at a Bronx Jewish high school. This one here, anti-Israeli vandals leave bloody doll dubbed Palestinian child messiah outside of Ritchie Torres' office. This one here is an op-ed thanking Congressman Torres, who has earned our respect and appreciation. So they're thanking him for his Zionist support, even as the protesters go after him. And here's the headline I brought up earlier. Ritchie Torres is Israel's loudest House supporter. This New York Times article, AOC and Ritchie Torres collide over Israel. That was a joke, by the way. And I think I'll leave it there as far as the headlines that I wanted to read. Now let's go back to Twitter for one last item. And this is a shorter part here. Let me see if I have any other receipts for the Ritchie Torres story first, and then if I don't have any more there, we'll go into the Max Boot clip. And it's something Max Boot, every time he comes, you know, he rears his head. He's always to say something just outrageously ridiculous, and he does not cease to accomplish that once again. So yeah, I think that's it with Ritchie Torres. Let's get to the Max Boot clip here. So Max Boot went on let's start here. Keep it simple. I think we can keep it simple here. Max Boot is a POS. And actually, I'm going to start because there's two clips. One of the clips is on Twitter, but the other clip is not. So I'll have to play it from the actual episode. And that's here. We're going to listen to Max Boot describe Joe Biden's position in his position on Israel and how that's affecting him. Here is Max Boot. There's really no other explanation or preface to this. You just have to listen to this guy.
When Farkas, Max, you say that there's some similarities between what's happening in Gaza and Ukraine. Tell us.
Well, there's no question, Joe, although they're very different wars, and obviously Hamas is labeled as a terrorist organization and Russia is a nation state, but Hamas is really a quasi-governmental entity with about 30,000 fighters under their command at the start of this war. And I think some of the challenges that Israel is facing in battling Hamas are similar to the challenges that Ukraine has been facing in battling the Russian army, including dealing with an adversary who doesn't care about casualties. And this
Listen to this logic.
You know, one of the most chilling aspects of both wars.
Listen
General
to this
Zaluzhny,
logic.
the Ukrainian commander-in-chief, recently admitted that he thought that inflicting all these casualties on the Russians would cause them to end the invasion. And it hasn't, because Vladimir Putin doesn't care about how many of his own people die. And it's
You hear the circular logic of these complete psychopaths. Now, kid you not, Max Boot is a psychopath. Max Boot is a genocidal maniac. Max Boot is a warmongering maniac. Now, he's saying, how do you fight an adversary that doesn't care about human life? And the way he explains that is that I'm killing so many of your people. You don't care about those people, so you don't even do nothing. That shows that you don't care. It has no reflection on the person who's pulling the trigger to kill the people. How does Max Boot? I'm sorry, Boot. I keep saying Boot, but Boot. How does Max Boot not see that unless you're a psychopathic maniac? I was astonished when he made this point with a straight face. And I'm going to let him make it again because it's insane to me what he's saying here.
Different wars, and obviously Hamas is labeled as a terrorist organization and Russia is a nation state, but Hamas is really a quasi-governmental entity with about 30,000 fighters under their command at the start of this war. And I think some of the challenges that Israel is facing in battling Hamas are similar to the challenges that Ukraine has been facing in battling the Russian army, including dealing with an adversary who doesn't care about casualties. And
now understand, he's dealing with an adversary that doesn't care about casualties. He's saying that Russia doesn't care about casualties and Palestinians don't care about casualties. Now he's saying this about Russia because supposedly, you know, that fake story that they've lost like 300,000 men, which is complete made up story. But he's saying the loss of the 300,000 people should be stopping you from this war. How does that not apply the other way around? The loss of Ukraine's people, several 100,000 Ukrainians, generation of Ukrainian young men. How does that not still with the same logic? But then he turns around and uses this same logic, which is, to me, it's hard enough to apply this logic to Russia, Ukraine, but to apply the logic that Palestinians aren't the ones, or even Hamas in this situation, aren't the ones who care nothing about civilian lives as Israel's murdering 20,000 people. That, you know how much of a stretch it is for you to apply that to Israel, but he does.
And this is, you know, one of the most chilling aspects of both wars. General Zaluzhny, the Ukrainian commander-in-chief, recently admitted that he thought that inflicting all these casualties on the Russians would cause them to end the invasion. And it hasn't, because Vladimir Putin doesn't care about how many of his own people die. And in a similar fashion, Israel has inflicted horrifying casualties in the Gaza Strip. Not, you know, they're not trying to target civilians.
You see how he has to insert this? Nick has said this many times. It is so key that propagandists for Israel must always address intent anytime they're talking about these casualties, because he's trying to give an analogy, so he has to make the analogy similar, and he has to describe it as these are horrifying casualties. But then he has to insert, they're not trying to do it, because the intent is the indifference on whether or not they are labeled a terrorist organization or not. This is what the United States leans on for voting, being the last remaining vote to veto them being classified as a terrorist organization. Their intent is different. So this is where he sort of inserts that Max Boot, and let's let him finish. This guy is a psychopath, and he looks like a psychopath. A lot of other psychopaths has charm on their face. He looks like a psychopath.
Cause them to end the invasion, and it hasn't, because Vladimir Putin doesn't care about how many of his own people die. And in a similar fashion, Israel has inflicted horrifying casualties in the Gaza Strip. Not, you know, they're not trying to target civilians, but unfortunately civilians are in the line of fire because of the way Hamas fights. But it doesn't make any difference to Hamas. They're not opening up their tunnels to shield civilians. And there's a sense that the Hamas leadership is willing to fight to the last.
You know how much of a psychopath you have to be to say you don't care? That's like so that's like being at a Die Hard movie. And I'm trying to pick a movie that spans generation, from Die Hard 1 to the last Die Hard. How many years is that? So you're in a Die Hard movie. You're Bruce Willis, and actually you don't have to be Bruce Willis, but you're telling me the person who has the hostages, I have a hostage, gun to their head. If I say I'm going to pull this trigger, if you person over there don't do that, I'm going to pull the trigger on this person I have hostage, and you don't, you are the person who don't care about this life, not me who's holding the hostage and the gun. You see the ability of these people to have this circular logic to never point the sort of murderous behavior back at them. Yes, I'm pulling the trigger. Yes, I'm dropping the bombs. Yes, I'm dropping, doing all these things. But you not responding to my murderous actions make you the problem and not me that's committing it. That's his logic. And that's the logic of a lot of these imperialists, of a bully. That's literally the logic of a bully.
Palestinian.
That
so
I can inflict pain and you, that I can inflict pain and you who's supposed to have a heart is not reacting. That means you are the deranged one, not me that's inflicting the pain.
Countries like ours have to readjust our mindset and realize that when we're fighting
so now here he goes in and
fashion,
explains
Israel has inflicted.
Now here he goes in and explains. Let me let him explain it, and then I'll talk about it on the other side. I rewind it so you can hear this next sentence fully.
Horrifying casualties in the Gaza Strip. Not, they're not trying to target civilians, but unfortunately civilians are in the line of fire because of the way Hamas fights. But it doesn't make any difference to Hamas. They're not opening up their tunnels to shield civilians, and there's a sense that the Hamas leadership is willing to fight to the last Palestinian. And so, I think liberal countries like ours have to readjust our mindset and realize that when we're fighting adversaries that don't care about the loss of life, it's not, they don't operate under the same rules that we do, and that requires a different playbook.
Do you understand what he's describing? When you're operating with people who don't respond to when we inflict severe casualties and deaths, when you're operating with somebody else like that, you have to have a different playbook. He's saying you can't back down. You just have to proceed. If they don't care about the lives, we can't care either. This is Max Boot. Psychopath.
To deal with it. I think there's also a lot of other similarities with the importance of information operations and the way that both Hamas and Russia have tried to negate Western technology by blinding our sensors. Operate under the same rules that we do, and that requires.
I'm asking you to look in this guy's face. Because I'm right up on the screen and I'm looking through this guy. This guy he's empty. He's deranged. Almost like an android. And you gotta be to be speaking about a genocide in this way and saying we have to make an adjustment because they're not responding to our genocide. We just have to keep doing our genocide.
Requires a different playbook to deal with it. I think there's also a lot of other similarities with the importance of information operations and the way that both Hamas and Russia have tried to negate Western technology by blinding our sensors. They've also forced the Ukrainian army and the Israeli army to fight in cities, which is very difficult to do and something that the U.S. needs to learn an awful lot about. But I think the general, the overall theme, Joe, I would say is simply the need to prepare for all sorts of contingencies. And, there's no question that both Ukraine and Israel were not well prepared for the wars in which they are now fighting. And as a result of that, they paid a very heavy price in blood. And so kind of the thrust of my column was to suggest that the U.S. military needs to learn some of these lessons so we ourselves are prepared in the future for whatever kind of conflict we face.
Evelyn. Now, these are the psychopaths that's writing for the most supposedly the top news organization. This is a Washington Post writer, completely a psychopath, writing as if he's an expert and being brought on Morning Joe as if he's an expert in any field besides being a maniac and a psychopath. Now, let's go. Now they talk a little bit more. They go to Claire McCaskill in the video, and then they come back to Max. So instead of fast forwarding, I'll just skip right to the clip. This is Case Study QB. He clipped the second part that Max addresses, and Max in this second clip is addressing how people aren't responding. Biden's coalition is having a negative response to his approach to Israel. And Morning Joe is like, hey, what do you think about this? And listen to what Max Booth says. He essentially says, F Biden's coalition. When you got to do genocide, you just got to do genocide. This is essentially what he says here. Let's listen.
If you look at the divisions within the United States about what to do on Hamas and Israel, on the considerable support we've seen among progressives for Palestinians in Gaza, I think a surprise to some political figures in the United States. Are there calibrations, are there changes or adjustments the Biden administration ought to be making because of what they see happening with American public opinion?
I'm sorry. I go a lot on gut feeling and my human experience. This guy's, I'm just looking in his face. This guy, when you think about the soulless people who can commit atrocities on other human beings, decapitations, murders of babies, this is the type of person that it takes. It almost like this person has no human interaction. It feels like he has no human interaction but to promote war. He seems very socially awkward. These are the people that's running our government. These are the people that's advising and writing pieces on our largest news organizations.
Amazing. I think what President Biden is doing is basically the right thing, and I think it's very politically courageous, and I don't think he gets enough credit for it, which is basically he is going against the base of the Democratic Party, which is...
It's politically courageous to support and fund a genocide, and it's politically courageous to kill 20,000 people. 70% are women and children. That's politically courageous to a person who upholds white supremacy and genocide and genocidal thoughts. That's politically courageous to stand with slavery, even as you see it coming to an end. That's politically courageous, according to Max Booth. Max Booth.
Administration ought to be making because of what they see happening with American public opinion.
I think what President Biden is doing is basically the right thing, and I think it's very politically courageous, and I don't think he gets enough credit for it, which is basically he is going against the base of the Democratic Party, which is increasingly critical of Israel. There was a recent poll that showed only 18% of Democrats think that what Israel is doing is the right thing right now. But, you know, President Biden, Joe Biden, is a very instinctive pro-Israel, pro-Zionist kind of guy, and he understands the horror that Israel suffered on
pro-Israel, pro-Zionist type of guy.
Understands the horror that Israel suffered on 10/7, and so he's backing Israel's right to defend itself, while at the same time saying, wait a second, you have to be discriminating, and if you're killing a lot of civilians, this war could backfire. And he's also saying, you got to think about what happens the day after. You got to have Palestinians come in to rule Gaza. It can't be indefinite Israeli occupation. And unfortunately, you know, Netanyahu is not listening to that, as Evelyn was just pointing out. he's being driven a lot, I think, by the internal political imperatives in Israel, which is that his coalition partners hate the idea of a Palestinian state. In fact, they want to annex the West Bank. And so Bibi is listening more to his coalition partners than he is listening to President Biden. But I think President Biden's message is the right one. And I think he's trying to balance, he's trying to be a good friend for Israel, which is not to give Israel a blank check, but also not to say, like a lot of people are saying, you have to cease fighting right now, because if they do that, then Hamas wins.
Now, what this clip doesn't show is slightly uncomfortable right after he says that, because there have been several segments where Morning Joe have been talking about a ceasefire. And then they have this guest come on and say this. So everybody kind of go, it's quietly. Actually, let me see if I have it here. You can kind of see it. Maybe not. I guess I can show it a little bit. Yeah. Let me show it where you can see it's kind of uncomfortable. And then Claire McCaskill, believe it or not, chimes in to talk more pro-Palestinian stuff. I believe it's right here. Let me see.
Israel, pro-Zionist kind of guy, and he understands the horror that Israel suffered on 10/7, and so he's backing Israel's right to defend itself, while at the same time saying, wait a second, you have to be discriminating, and if you're killing a lot of civilians, this war could backfire. And he's also saying, you got to think about what happens the day after. You got to have Palestinians come in to rule Gaza. It can't be indefinite Israeli occupation. And unfortunately, Netanyahu is not listening to that, as Evelyn was just pointing out. He's being driven a lot, I think, by the internal political imperatives in Israel, which is that his coalition partners hate the idea of a Palestinian state. In fact, they want to annex the West Bank. And so Bibi is listening more to his coalition partners than he is listening to President Biden. But I think President Biden's message is the right one. And I think he's trying to balance, he's trying to be a good friend for Israel, which is not to give Israel a blank check, but also not to say, like a lot of people are saying, you have to cease fighting right now, because if they do that, then Hamas wins.
Yeah, Claire, I'm curious what your thought is, what the Biden administration.
You notice how they don't even discuss what he's saying and they just pivot? Because it's counter to what they've been trying to project. Now, they go to Claire, and believe it or not, Claire starts to say things that now, maybe it's just because it came right after Max Boot, why it sounded like good stuff, but let's listen.
Administration should do, because I think most of us here would agree that Israel has a right not only to defend itself, but to seek the military destruction of Hamas. But saying that we support Israel is far different than saying we support Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's a man that even the Israelis don't support.
And this is what they've been trying to do to help Joe Biden, is trying to separate Netanyahu's criticism from the state of Israel's criticism. And that's one way. So all this harsh criticism is more they're trying to direct it towards Netanyahu instead of the state of Israel. But let's listen.
I heard repeated warnings out of Israel that Israel was being divided terribly, militarily, and the intel community being divided by Netanyahu's attacks on the rule of law and the Supreme Court. How do we divide our support, our historic support that goes back to Harry Truman in 1948, our support for Israel, and our disapproval of Benjamin Netanyahu, who, again, as Evelyn and Max say, more focused on his coalition in Israel than on doing what's right for the Israeli people?
Remember, Bibi Netanyahu is only in power right now because he formed a government with the most extreme, most hard-right portions of Israeli elected officials. And keep in mind that Bibi Netanyahu has done more to destroy bipartisan support of Israel than any leader in Israel's history. He came over to Washington when I was in the Senate and began behaving in a partisan way, speaking to Republicans, refusing to come speak to Democrats in the Senate, It really was shocking to us at the time, because bipartisan support of Israel has always been an oasis of civility and priority for the American government. But let's be clear about one thing. They cannot, with a straight face, say they are not doing indiscriminate killing in Gaza when they kill.
You see that? Now you see the awkwardness, because what she's going into right here is the game that Morning Joe has been sort of the talking points they've kind of been talking about the last week. So when they insert that Max Boot part where he's saying all this unhinged shit, it sort of doesn't align with what they've been saying the last week. So they just kind of be quiet after he says that, and then they just move on. But it's curious to me, right after that, Claire McCaskill says all of this and more.
Kill 3 of their own hostages that were waving a white flag and shirtless. And they knew days before they killed their own hostages that those hostages were in that building. They had sent a dog in with a camera, and the militant Hamas people in that building had killed the dog, but the camera kept recording and heard the voices of the hostages there. So if they're killing their own hostages, they have no credibility on the world stage that they're not doing indiscriminate killings. And it is really hurting the cause of Israel and the national security of Israel for decades to come. Something has to change in the way they are prosecuting this war, or they may win a battle, but as the saying goes, they're going to lose a much bigger war that is so imperative for the safety of Israel going forward.
Evelyn, Claire just.
And there you go. Like I said, wanted to include that because that was unusual clarity from loser Claire McCaskill on this issue. And like I said, maybe it just sounds good because it followed Max Boot and his terrible warmongering analysis from the Washington Post. Think I can end it there. I believe I've covered all the topics. I'm just going to look through my feed and see if anything has any breaking news while I'm live. Let me check out my bookmark. So we covered Israel kills Iranian. We covered Fetterman, Carville. I think the Starbucks story we'll do another day. Starbucks loses $11 billion because of the boycott. There's a Bree versus Alan Dershowitz video I hope to cover later. We covered this one, covered that one. Ritchie Torres. So yeah, I think I covered most of my items today. Let's see if there's any breaking news in my feed, or actually just see what's in my feed. Let's see what people are talking about before I get out of here. I actually want to start doing this. What's happening on X, Twitter? So let's do that. That's what this next segment. I'm going to try to start doing this maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the show so we can get any up-to-date information. The editors at The Intercept and The Nation have not demanded a single piece of evidence from writers stating matter of fact that Palestinian militants committed rape. Of course not. He's pointing that out there. And here's Margaret Kimberly pointing out, and so Hamas is not the enemy here. Gaza is the enemy. This is just another unhinged Israeli government official saying some stuff on TV, on camera that they should not be, if what they're saying is true. This is 11 years old. Palestinian family trapped under rubble, thrilled to hear Gaza trending on Twitter. That's insane. But that is one of them. Here goes another one. Killing tens of thousands of children and then mocking them by playing on their playground is a different kind of evil. Yes, so this is the IDF playing on the toys or the playground of the kids that they've massacred.
يبقى نفتح كيفش.
Yeah, those guys are good. Yeah, those are the good guys, all right. This one from Aaron Mate. Official death toll is 29,000, and it's certainly an undercount. Wow, we're already at 29,000 as the official death count. And you can see here, I'll bring up the graphic here. It says the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip, 29,124 is the death count. Oh, God. Let's continue. Anything else? Here goes Abby Martin. Israeli forces are threatening journalists before killing them. Why is there a resounding silence from media professionals on the systematic assassination of their colleagues? And she's pointing this out. Another journalist killed, and it says journalists. One of the few journalists covering the Israeli occupation massacre in the North Gaza reveals that he received a call from the Israeli forces ordering him to delete the content he published and to stop covering news about Israeli massacre. So yeah, he reported this. All right, so that's from Abby Martin. This is from Rome. Shouting out this breaking news story: Cuban president calls Israel a terrorist state and accuses it of genocide. If you didn't hear, that's Cuba's president recently said something like that. So I'm going to retweet all of these. And let's do one more from the cradle before we stop this here. As of today, the Iraqi resistance has launched 100 attacks against U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria since October 18th. That is from the cradle. This one from Dr. Jill Stein. It says, we are the third campaign in 2024. This is a powerful time to be running as the only pro-worker, anti-war climate action campaign that will be on the ballot across the country. This is from Jill Stein. Let's play a little bit of it.
The course of history has moved into exactly the place where we said it was going. Inequality is just, off the charts. Young people are like 50% describe themselves as hopeless about the future. So, it's not like we have a tough sell here. People have thrown in the towel. They're done. The powers that be and the Democrats are just terrified. If we remain so far ahead on the ballot, we're basically the third campaign right now. This is just such a powerful time to be running as what will be the only pro-worker, anti-war climate action campaign that will actually be on the ballot across the country.
Right. Now, the reason she can make the claim that she's the only pro-war what the hell? Okay. Where she's the only pro-worker, anti-war climate action campaign is because the qualifiers is saying on the ballot. Will Cornel West and RFK be on many ballots? I'm sure they'll make a few because the hurdles to get on some ballots is pretty easy. But how many will they get on? And let's continue here. Breaking: Israel has now killed 11,422 Palestinian kids. So we have crossed 11,000 kids when we're talking about Palestinian deaths. Just to give you an update.
Then raped again, chopped into pieces, then sold on the black market.
United States, telling audiences that
Okay, let's see. This is. It says, inspired by my reporting. This is from Max Blumenthal. This brilliant takedown by Propaganda and Company provides the strongest, most accessible refutation of the bogus atrocity propaganda Israel concocted to justify its genocidal rampage. So maybe we'll watch a little bit of this on our way out. Yeah, and then just some more. All right, so let's watch this on our way out. This one's from Max Blumenthal.
Secretary Blinken spreading atrocity propaganda to the U.S. Senate.
Let's watch.
Have you seen this video?
Actually,
of Secretary Blinken spreading.
I'm gonna let this be my outro video. So let me go ahead and read super chats if we have any. Let me see if we do have a few super chats. So let's read some super chats and then we're gonna end with this video. And so that's what's happening. We don't have to do that anymore. I do have our Patreon scrolling down at the bottom. If you are able to support, $3 is the lowest monthly plan you can get. $3 a month. That is $36 a year to be a Patreon member for RBN. I'll read this one here. ARJ 1997. Thank you for posting about the genocide convention information. Yeah, Nick did posted that earlier. This means that Yemen and any country that opposes Israel are within the right to do so. Absolutely. Talking about the genocide convention. This one from Sam. Thank you for this super chat. Said this before. Mainstream media trying to create a fake duopoly in Israeli politics, so they can say support one party but condemn the other as too extreme. Thank you for that, Sam. Next super chat. This one from DC is. Thank you for the super chat. Is invading Guyana example of great foreign policy? That's a good question. Don't know. But this was earlier when Nick was talking about some foreign policy here. This one from Amanda Brinkley. Thank you for this. Israel and IDF want to control a world police state. Absolutely. I think they're on their way to doing that. Big L, thank you for this. We don't condemn Nat Turner and we don't condemn Hamas. Free Palestine. And that is one of the examples we like to give, is that Nat Turner, by the standards of today, would be considered a terrorist for fighting back against oppression. This last one from Abiding71. Thank you for the super sticker. Really do appreciate it. Let's make sure we hit that like button on your way out. This week and next week, I'll be coming at you around this time more regularly because the girls are off school. So I'm not so confined to that 1 p.m. Eastern start time. So more my other old time of 3 p.m. Eastern, hopefully I'll be starting around that time or around there. So be anywhere between 1 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm trying to make sure I'm consistent with live streaming. Nick is going to be on tonight, so don't miss him tonight. Tomorrow, I'm likely to be back. Let's see. And then also, I think JB and Sabby show tomorrow, Thursday. Excuse me. Hang on one second here. We're at 886 likes. We just need one more. I'm sorry. 86. We just need 14 more to get to 400. So can we get to 400 before the stream is over? We had 386 likes the last time I checked. 386. So let's get to our target. Got the hiccups. Let's get to our target. Let me read this super chat here. It was It was added at the last minute. This one from John Freeze. Thank you for the super chat or super sticker 1999. Much appreciated. We're going to end with this, video. I got the hiccups. This video from Max Blumenthal that he put out. He didn't create this, but he quote tweeted this and I wanted to play it. Let's watch.
Have you seen this video of Secretary Blinken spreading atrocity propaganda to the U.S. Senate?
A family of four, a young boy and girl, 6 and 8 years old, and their parents around the breakfast table. The father has eye
he made
gouged
this
out in
up.
front of his kids. The mother's breast cut off. The girl's foot amputated. The boy's fingers cut off before they were executed. And then their executioners sat down and had a meal. That's what this society is dealing with.
Secretary Blinken wants you to believe that this actually happened, but the entire story is a lie. It has been thoroughly debunked. Most, if not all, of the atrocity stories coming out are bogus lies. We've seen them get debunked over and over. So it begs the question, where are these lies coming from? Who is behind them? And why do high-level U.S. officials keep repeating them? Well, the answer is likely going to disgust you. You see, there's a sort of race to the bottom taking place right now between competing Israeli disaster relief groups. It's a competition to see who can tell the most disturbing story. Oh, you saw beheaded babies? Well, I saw babies being baked in ovens.
Oh, that's nothing. I saw a pregnant mother get raped, baked, then raped again, chopped into pieces, then sold on the black market to the Hezbollah faction of the Mexican cartel.
It's all highly unusual, but the lies actually start to make sense when you learn who's behind them. You see, these stories are coming from disaster relief groups that are fighting for media attention and charitable donations. These groups are in the business of raising money. And right now, atrocity fundraising is a gold rush. Very wealthy and very emotional Jewish Westerners are opening up their wallets to organizations and charities. And these organizations are jockeying for position as the best charity to give money to. And nothing raises money like a good story. For example, Eli Beer, the president of United Hezbollah, went on a media tour around the United States, telling audiences that babies were placed in ovens and baked to death.
Little baby in an oven. They put them in, these bastards put these babies in an oven and put on their oven. We found the kid a few hours later.
This propelled him and his organization to the forefront of the media for several days, earning tons of awareness for his organization's work. He was able to leverage this media attention into several fundraisers where he managed to collect a whopping $50 million from shocked and appalled donors. But of course, the entire story was a lie. Israeli reporter Ishay Cohen investigated and determined that the story wasn't true. Another Israeli journalist, Chaim Leninson, had this to say about Eli Beer and the bullshit oven story. Like any good Jew who sees the rich, he thought about the money and told a story that does not exist. But this lie not only raised a ton of money for Eli Beer, it did considerable damage to the ceasefire movement and cost thousands of Palestinian children their lives because Zionist influencers took this bullshit story and ran wild with it. Caroline Glick tweeted, "They baked a Jewish baby alive in an oven. They murdered his father. They gang raped his mother over and over and laughed all along while they baked her baby alive in the oven. The Palestinians support Hamas. They love Hamas. No resupply.
No concessions. No mercy."
And John Pateritz, in a tweet that gained 10 million views, said, "They baked a baby in an oven." He repeats it 3 times. And then he goes on to say ceasefire one more time.
You f***ing baby murdering loving ghouls.
This manufactured story, manufactured outrage, and provided the media and the politicians with the social space needed to get behind Israel's genocidal war in Gaza. United Hezbollah did eventually concede that the story was not true, blaming it on a volunteer who thought he saw such a case, but not before raising their money and not before causing damage. Hey, I get it. It happens. Your imagination can play tricks on you. Sometimes you open an oven and you see meatloaf. Sometimes you see babies. It depends on the state of mind you're in. Unfortunately, these people seem to not only be in a victim state of mind, but also a money-hungry state of mind, because they are imagining a lot of bullshit right now. and they're using it to raise money. And United Hatzalah isn't alone in doing this. They have a competitor in the disaster relief space called Zaka. And this group, Zaka, is responsible for some of the most obscene atrocity imaginations. These people lied about beheaded babies. They lied about mass rape. They even lied about a fetus being cut out of its mother. And just like United Hatzalah, Zaka is hungry for money right now. Their head of operations, Yossi Landau, has also gone around telling media and donors all sorts of atrocity propaganda lies.
Father and mother, hands tied in the back. And on the other side, there's two children, a boy and a girl, hands tied in the back, and they were torched. You can see they were torched. Parents should see how the children are being torched, and the children should see how parents should be being torched. And in the middle, there's a full table of food with those terrorists were sitting and eating while torching them.
Sound familiar? This is the same story Tony Blinken told the United States Senate.
And then their executioners sat down and had a meal.
The problem is that it's a complete lie. According to Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone, despite the presence of multiple potential witnesses, independent testimony corroborating Landau's claim has yet to surface. He goes on to point out that there were also no children that match the age described by Yossi Landau in Kibbutz Be'eri. There are no recorded deaths of siblings around the age of 6 to 8 in Be'eri on October 7th. Any record of a young child killed is non-existent. So it's clear then that the story is a complete fabrication. So why did Tony Blinken share it with the United States Senate? Well, it's for the same reason they have been sharing all of their atrocity propaganda lies, to provide space and cover for the Israelis to commit war crimes in Gaza. These lies are meant to distract you from what's happening. And now Zionists are trying to convince the world that mass rape took place. This woman is leading the so-called investigation into Hamas rape, but the investigation is off to a bad start. During a presentation, she shared a picture of a dead female Kurdish fighter from another time in another place and tried to present it as evidence of a raped victim from the Nova Music Festival.
Another image shows the body of a young woman stripped from the waist down, her underwear were torn, hung on one leg, and she was photographed on the site at the Nova Music Festival.
And it gets worse. So far, not a single first-hand testimony or video proving allegations of mass rape has been produced. The rape stories are heavily dependent on graphic second-hand claims provided by the liars of Zaka. But it doesn't seem to matter to mainstream media and Western politicians who have been repeating the claims regardless. The UK Sunday Times, for example, quoted a Zaka staffer who said it was clear they were trying to kill, to burn, to rape. Ironically, Zaka, the group pushing the rape claims, was founded by a rapist. Yehuda Meshi Sahav, who founded Zaka, was discovered to be a serial rapist of young people. For decades, he sexually abused boys and girls. And apparently, Yehuda also embezzled millions of dollars from Zaka to fund his own lavish lifestyle. As the investigation to both his rapes and financial corruption escalated, Yehuda decided to do the world a favor and just kill himself. But the corruption didn't die with him. Brad Pierce, an independent scholar who documented Zaka's corruption, described the group as the most opaque and suspicious non-governmental organization I have ever investigated. This is the group behind the mass rape claims. It's no wonder the world has questions. For Zaka, for Landau, for everyone. But like many of the Zionists spreading wild atrocity propaganda stories, Landau seems to think that these claims should be accepted without scrutiny or evidence. According to Landau, those who have questions about his stories should be killed. This person is clearly insane, yet mainstream media and politicians keep repeating his lies. For example, Landau lied about personally seeing children and babies beheaded at Kfar Aza. An Israeli spokesperson then took his fake story and declared a senior official in the Israeli coronary service has confirmed the allegation of beheaded babies. This made its way to CNN, where Sarah Sidner amplified the lie, eventually culminating in the press conference with Joe Biden sharing it with the American people. It's like a sick game of telephone, except the end result isn't just an inaccurate message. It's donation money for Zaka and genocide for Gaza. Of course, both Sarah Sidner and Joe Biden retracted their claims about beheaded babies. There are many atrocity propaganda lies to expose, and one day we will go through them one by one. For now, you should understand that these disaster relief organizations are inventing, spinning, or exaggerating stories in order to raise obscene amounts of money, whether it's online via their website or in person at various events, for their corrupt and shady disaster relief organizations. And these lies are unfortunately amplified by Western media and politicians, which of course prolongs the genocidal war of retribution currently taking place in Gaza. If you would like to read more about this in detail, please click the link in either the comment section or the description of this video. I want to make